The moment Adrian Voss saw his runaway wife walk through that door, 8 months pregnant with a child she'd hidden from him for 2 years, everything he'd built, every wall he'd erected, every rule he'd lived by shattered in an instant. This is a story about secrets that destroy, love that refuses to die, and a second chance that costs everything. If you're ready for a journey through betrayal, redemption, and impossible choices, stay with me until the very end. And if this story moves you, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far Elena and Adrian's story travels across the world. The elevator doors opened on the 42nd floor with a soft chime that seemed absurdly delicate for what Elena Ward was about to do. She stepped into the hallway of the luxury high-rise, her worn canvas shoes silent against marble that probably cost more than everything she currently owned. The contrast wasn't lost on her. 2 years ago, she'd walked halls like these without a second thought. Now the opulence felt like a museum exhibit from someone else's life. Her hand instinctively went to the small of her back, trying to ease the constant ache that had become her companion these last few months. 8 months pregnant, and her body was a roadmap of exhaustion. Swollen ankles stuffed into the only shoes that still fit, dark circles under her eyes that no amount of concealer could hide, and a heaviness that went far beyond the physical weight she carried. The baby shifted inside her, a rolling movement that pressed against her ribs. Elena paused, breathing through the discomfort, one hand splayed across her enormous belly. "Just a little longer," she whispered. "We're almost done here. Then we disappear. For good this time." She'd been having these one-sided conversations more frequently lately. It helped somehow to voice her thoughts to the tiny person who depended entirely on her survival instincts. Those instincts had kept them both alive for 2 years. 2 years of looking over her shoulder, of sleeping with one eye open, of building a life out of borrowed names and cash-only transactions. Today would end all of that. Today, she would sign the divorce papers and finally, legally, sever the last tie to Adrian Voss. Suite 4208 stood at the end of the hall, its heavy double doors as imposing as a fortress gate. The lawyer's office. Neutral ground, or as neutral as anything could be when dealing with a man like Adrian. She'd insisted on this location specifically because it was public, professional, and most importantly, not his territory. Marcus Chen, the attorney handling the divorce, had assured her that Adrian wouldn't even be present. He'd signed his portion of the paperwork weeks ago, Marcus had said. All that remained was her signature, and she'd be free. Free. The word tasted like the promise she'd made to herself so many times it had worn smooth with repetition. Elena's hand trembled slightly as she reached for the door handle. "Get it together," she told herself firmly. "You've survived worse than signing a piece of paper. You've survived him." The reception area was exactly what she'd expected. Understated elegance, soft gray walls, abstract art that probably meant something to people who understood such things. A young receptionist looked up from her computer, her professional smile faltering slightly when she took in Elena's appearance. Elena knew what she saw, a visibly pregnant woman in a faded thrift store dress, clearly out of place in these immaculate surroundings. "I'm here to see Marcus Chen," Elena said, lifting her chin slightly. She'd learned not to apologize for existing, for taking up space. Poverty wasn't a crime, no matter how much the world sometimes made it feel like one. "Of course. Your name?" "Elena Ward." The receptionist's fingers flew across her keyboard, then paused. A small crease appeared between her perfectly shaped eyebrows. "I'm sorry, Ms. Ward, but I don't see you on the schedule for today." Elena's stomach dropped. "That's impossible. I confirmed this appointment 3 times. I spoke with Marcus directly yesterday." "Let me check with him." The receptionist picked up her phone, speaking in low tones. When she hung up, confusion had replaced her professional veneer. "I apologize for the mix-up. Mr. Chen says he'll be right out. Please, have a seat." Something was wrong. Elena could feel it in the sudden tension of the receptionist's shoulders, in the way her eyes kept darting back to Elena with poorly concealed curiosity. The survival instincts that had kept Elena alive began sending up warning flares. She was turning toward the door, toward escape, when Marcus Chen emerged from the inner office. He was a slight man in his 50s with silver-threaded hair and the kind of expensive suit that whispered rather than shouted its cost. But it was his expression that made Elena's blood run cold. The carefully neutral lawyer's face couldn't quite hide the panic in his eyes. Ms. Ward, he said, his voice strained. If we could speak privately for just a moment. What's going on, Marcus? Elena demanded, her hand protectively cradling her belly. You said this would be simple. Sign and done. That's what you promised. Yes, well, there's been a slight complication. The door to the inner office opened, and Adrian Voss walked out. Time didn't just stop. It shattered. Elena's brain refused to process what her eyes were seeing. This wasn't possible. This wasn't the plan. Adrian wasn't supposed to be here. Marcus had promised, had guaranteed, 2 years. She hadn't seen him in 2 years, and yet he looked exactly as he had in her nightmares, and, if she was honest with herself, in her dreams too. Tall, with shoulders that filled out his black suit jacket in a way that made it clear the expensive tailoring was just window dressing for the lethal strength beneath. Dark hair styled with casual precision, a face that might have been carved from marble by someone who understood that beauty and danger weren't opposites, but twins. But it was his eyes that undid her, gray as a winter storm and just as unforgiving. They'd always seen too much, understood too quickly. She'd fallen in love with those eyes once. She'd also learned to fear them. For one crystalline moment, Adrian's expression was utterly blank, his gaze traveling from her face downward. When his eyes reached her belly, impossible to hide, impossible to miss, something happened to his face that Elena had never seen before in all the time she'd known him. Complete and total shock. The file he'd been holding slipped from his fingers, papers scattering across the expensive carpet like snow. He didn't seem to notice. He couldn't seem to look away from her stomach, from the undeniable evidence of what she'd kept from him. Elena. Her name came out like something broken. What? She couldn't breathe. The room was spinning, closing in. 2 years of running, of hiding, of building walls between who she'd been and who she'd become. And it all collapsed in the space of a heartbeat. I need to leave, she managed, turning toward the door. Don't. The single word cracked like a whip, stopping her mid-step. It wasn't loud. Adrian never needed volume to command a room. But the raw authority in his voice was a physical thing. When she didn't move, he took a step forward, then another. Elena's body locked up, caught between the primal urge to flee and the equally powerful knowledge that running from Adrian Voss had never worked before. Why would it work now? Marcus, Adrian said, his eyes never leaving Elena. Get out! Mr. Voss, I really think I should. Now! The lawyer and receptionist evacuated like the office was on fire. The door clicked shut behind them with terrible finality, and Elena was alone with the man she'd promised herself she'd never face again. Adrian moved closer, each step measured and careful, as if approaching something wild that might bolt. His gaze remained locked on her belly with an intensity that made her skin prickle. When he was close enough that she could see the flecks of darker gray in his irises, he stopped. How far along? His voice had gone quiet, deadly calm. It was the tone he used when making decisions that would ruin lives. Elena lifted her chin, channeling every ounce of courage she'd scraped together over 2 years of survival. That's none of your business. None of my... He laughed, a sound completely devoid of humor. You disappeared without a trace. Changed your name, your appearance, ran to the other side of the country. I searched for you, Elena. I turned over every stone, called in every favor, made deals with people I swore I'd never deal with. For 2 years, you were a ghost. That was the point. And now you show up here, pregnant, to sign divorce papers? His hand moved, reaching toward her belly, and Elena flinched back instinctively. The reaction made him freeze. Something flickered across his face, hurt, quickly buried under cold fury. Are you afraid of me? I was always afraid of you, Adrian. I was just too stupid to realize it until it was almost too late. That's not an answer to my question. His gaze dropped again to her stomach, and this time when his hand moved, she didn't pull away. Couldn't, somehow. His palm hovered an inch from the curve of her belly, not quite touching, asking permission he'd never asked for anything else in his life. Against every instinct screaming at her to maintain distance, Elena found herself nodding. The moment his hand made contact, the baby kicked, hard. Adrian jerked back as if burned, his eyes going wide. Then, incredibly, he laughed, a genuine sound of wonder that transformed his face into something almost boyish. Was that... Your child, Elena heard herself say, the words escaping before she could stop them. Yes. The confirmation hit him like a physical blow. He staggered slightly, and for a moment the unshakable Adrian Voss looked utterly lost. When he spoke again, his voice was barely a whisper. Mine. I didn't come here for this conversation. Then what the hell did you come here for? The fury was returning, building like a storm. To erase me from your life completely? To take my child and disappear again? It's not your child. You gave up any claim to this baby the day you became what you are. What I am? His laugh was bitter now. I'm exactly what I was when you married me, Elena. You knew what I did. You knew who I worked for. I knew you were involved in your father's business. I didn't know you'd become him. The words landed like a slap. Adrian's jaw tightened, a muscle ticking in his cheek. That's not fair. Fair? Elena felt something break inside her, years of suppressed anger and fear and grief pouring out. You want to talk about fair? You put a gun to a man's head while I was in the next room. You came home with blood on your hands and kissed me like it was nothing. You turned our home into a fortress and our life into a prison. And when I begged you to stop, to find another way, you told me I was being naive. I was protecting you. You were protecting your empire. I was just another asset to guard, like your cars and your properties and your territories. Well, I'm done being an asset, Adrian. I'm done being something you own. I never... He cut himself off, breathing hard. Is that really what you think? That you meant nothing more to me than property? What else was I supposed to think? You made every decision about our lives without consulting me. You controlled where I went, who I saw, what I did. And when I tried to talk to you about it, you shut me down. Every single time. Because you didn't understand the dangers. Then you should have helped me understand, instead of treating me like a child who couldn't handle the truth. Elena pressed her hand to her back, wincing as a sharp pain lanced through her. The stress was taking its toll, and her body was making it clear. Adrian noticed immediately. Are you all right? I'm fine. You're in pain. I said I'm fine. But even as she said it, another contraction, Braxton Hicks, her doctor had said, nothing to worry about yet, tightened across her belly. She gasped, doubling over slightly. In an instant, Adrian's hands were on her, supporting her weight, guiding her toward a nearby chair. Sit down, now. Don't tell me what to... For once in your stubborn life, Elena, just listen to me. The fear in his voice was unmistakable. Please. The please broke through her defenses. She let him help her into the chair, hating how good it felt to have his hands on her, how right it seemed despite everything that had gone wrong between them. Adrian crouched in front of her, his hands gentle on her knees. How long have you been having contractions? They're just Braxton Hicks, practice contractions. It's normal at this stage. You're sure? I've been to a doctor, Adrian. I'm not an idiot. I never said... He stopped, visibly reining in his temper. When he spoke again, his voice was carefully controlled. What were you planning to do? After signing the papers? Elena met his eyes, seeing her own exhaustion reflected back. Disappear. Find somewhere safe to have this baby. Raise her away from all of this. Her? Something in his expression cracked open. It's a girl? She hadn't meant to tell him that. The information had slipped out in a moment of weakness, and now she watched as the reality of it settled over him like a physical weight. He sat back on his heels, one hand coming up to cover his mouth. A daughter, he whispered. We're having a daughter. I'm having a daughter, Elena corrected, even though the words felt hollow. You're signing away your rights to her. That's what the divorce papers include. Full custody to me, no parental claims from you. Like hell I am. You don't have a choice. Everyone has choices, Elena. You made yours when you ran. I'm making mine now. He stood, towering over her in a way that should have been intimidating but somehow wasn't. I'm not signing those papers. Then I'll take you to court. I'll fight you for custody. With what money? What resources? I know you've been barely surviving it, Elena. I know you've been living in a one-room apartment above a laundromat in a neighborhood where gunshots are white noise. I know you've been working 2 jobs just to afford prenatal vitamins. The words hit like physical blows. You've been watching me. I found you 3 months ago. Elena's world tilted. What? 3 months? I've had people keeping an eye on you, making sure you were safe, making sure you had what you needed. The anonymous money orders. Realization crashed over her. Twice in the last 3 months, money orders had appeared in her mailbox with no return address. She'd been terrified they were some kind of trap, had almost not cashed them. But rent had been due, and the baby had needed things, and desperation had won out over caution. You were struggling, Adrian said simply. What was I supposed to do, watch you suffer? You were supposed to let me go. That's what I asked for, Adrian. That's all I wanted, to be free of you. And our daughter, what about what she deserves? Does she deserve to grow up without a father? Does she deserve to live in poverty when I can give her everything? Everything except safety. Everything except a life that doesn't revolve around violence and crime, and I would never let anything happen to her, or to you. You can't promise that. Elena struggled to her feet, needing to be on his level, needing to make him understand. That's the whole point, Adrian. You live in a world where people die, where enemies are always circling, where today's ally is tomorrow's assassin. I can't raise a child in that world. I won't. Then I'll leave it. The words hung in the air between them, so unexpected that Elena was certain she'd misheard. What? You heard me. Adrian's face was set in lines of grim determination. I'll walk away from the business, from all of it. You can't just walk away. My father is dead, Elena, has been for 6 months. The news hit her like a freight train. What? How? Heart attack. Quick, at least. He didn't suffer. Adrian's expression was unreadable. I inherited everything, which means I can dismantle it all if I choose to. You're lying. You'd never give up that kind of power. Watch me. He stepped closer, and this time when his hand moved to her belly, she didn't stop him. The baby kicked again, as if sensing her father's presence. Adrian's face transformed with wonder. I've made a lot of mistakes, Elena. Most of them I can live with. But losing you, losing her, that's not a mistake I can survive. Pretty words don't change reality, Adrian. You can't just snap your fingers and become someone else. Then give me time to prove I can. His other hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing across her cheekbone with devastating gentleness. 1 hour. That's all I'm asking. Give me 1 hour to talk, to explain, to make you understand. If after that you still want to sign the papers and disappear, I won't stop you. You're lying. I've never lied to you, Elena. Not once. That, infuriatingly, was true. Adrian Voss was many things, dangerous, controlling, ruthless when he needed to be, but he'd never been a liar. Even when the truth was ugly, he'd given it to her straight. 1 hour, she heard herself say. But we set ground rules. You don't touch me unless I say you can. You don't raise your voice, and you don't try to control the conversation. Agreed. And if I want to leave at any point, you let me go. No arguments, no following me, no sending your people after me. A muscle ticked in his jaw, but he nodded. Agreed. Elena looked at this man who'd been her husband, the father of her unborn child, the person she'd loved and feared in equal measure. Every rational part of her brain was screaming that this was a mistake, that she should run while she still could. But another part, the part that had loved him once, that sometimes still ached with missing him in the dark hours of the night, whispered that maybe, just maybe, she owed him this much. 1 hour of honesty. 1 hour to say all the things they'd left unsaid. There's a cafe 2 blocks from here, she said finally. Public, neutral. We can talk there. Relief flooded Adrian's face, so profound it was almost painful to witness. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. You might not like what I have to say. I'll take whatever you're willing to give me, Elena, even if it's just anger. They gathered their things in tense silence, Elena acutely aware of Adrian's presence at her back as they left Marcus Chen's office. The lawyer was waiting in the hallway, looking like he'd aged 10 years in the last 20 minutes. Mr. Voss, should I... The appointment is postponed indefinitely, Adrian said curtly. I'll be in touch. The elevator ride down was excruciating. They stood on opposite sides of the car, neither speaking, the silence heavy with all the words they'd thrown at each other and all the ones still waiting to be said. Elena kept her eyes fixed on the descending floor numbers, hyper-aware of Adrian's gaze on her profile. When they reached the lobby, he moved to take her arm, then caught himself, remembering her rules. You shouldn't be walking far in your condition. I've been walking just fine for 8 months, Adrian. I'll manage 2 blocks. But the truth was, she was exhausted. The confrontation had drained her, and the baby was sitting heavy and low, making every step an effort. Still, she forced herself to maintain a steady pace, refusing to show weakness. The cafe was a small place tucked between a bookstore and a dry cleaner. Elena had chosen it deliberately. It was the kind of spot where Adrian Voss would stand out like a wolf in a petting zoo. Everything about him, from his $1,000 suit to the way he moved with predatory grace, screamed danger and power. The teenage barista's eyes went wide when they walked in, her gaze ping-ponging between Adrian's imposing presence and Elena's very pregnant belly. Welcome. What can I get you? Decaf tea, Elena said. Whatever herbal blend you have. Water, Adrian added. And whatever pastries you have fresh. All of them. All of them? The barista blinked. She needs to eat, Adrian said, nodding toward Elena. I don't know when she last had a proper meal. Elena felt her face flush with humiliation and anger. I eat just fine, thank you. You're too thin, even accounting for the pregnancy, you've lost weight. Maybe that's what happens when you're running for your life. The barista looked like she desperately wanted to be anywhere else. Elena took pity on her. Just the tea is fine, and maybe a muffin. And they found a table in the back corner, away from the windows. Old habits died hard. Adrian automatically positioned himself with his back to the wall, where he could see all the entrances and exits. Elena took the seat across from him, her hands wrapped around the warm mug the barista had brought over. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Adrian seemed content to watch her, his gaze cataloging every change the last 2 years had wrought. Elena knew what he saw. She was thinner everywhere except her belly, her hair longer and less styled, her clothes cheap and worn. She looked, she knew, like exactly what she was, a woman who'd been running on fumes for too long. Your hour is ticking, she said finally, breaking the silence. Adrian leaned back in his chair, hands folded on the table in front of him. Tell me why you left. You know why I left. I know you ran the day after I told you about the Castellano contract. What I don't know is why that was the breaking point. What made that different from all the other times I'd told you about my work? Elena took a sip of tea, buying herself time to organize her thoughts. How could she make him understand? It wasn't about the contract itself. It was about what it represented. You were taking over territory from a family that had controlled it for 3 generations. People were going to die, Adrian. You said it yourself that the Castellanos wouldn't give up without a fight. That's the business, Elena. You knew that. I knew it in theory, but that night, when you laid out your plans like you were discussing a merger instead of a war, I realized something. You weren't troubled by it. You weren't conflicted or regretful or even angry. You were excited. Adrian's jaw tightened. I was doing what needed to be done to protect our interests. Our interests? Elena laughed bitterly. I didn't have interests, Adrian. I had a husband who was slipping further and further into a world I didn't recognize. Every day you became more like your father, harder, colder, more willing to do whatever it took to win. My father built an empire that protected hundreds of families, that provided for people who had no other options. Your father was a monster who dressed up his crimes in rhetoric about loyalty and family. The words came out harsher than Elena had intended, but she couldn't take them back. Didn't want to. Adrian's eyes went cold. Be very careful what you say about my father. Or what? You'll make me disappear? Oh, wait, I already did that myself. Elena set down her mug with more force than necessary. This is exactly what I'm talking about. You asked me why I left, and when I try to explain, you threaten me. I didn't threaten you. Your tone did. Your body language did. Everything about you is a threat, Adrian, whether you mean it to be or not. That's what you don't understand. That's what you've never understood. Then explain it to me. The coldness receded, replaced by something that looked almost like desperation. Make me understand, Elena, because I swear I'm trying. Elena took a breath, searching for the right words. Do you remember the first time we met? The question seemed to throw him. Of course, the charity gala. You were wearing a blue dress and arguing with the caterer about the champagne selection. Despite everything, Elena felt a ghost of a smile. You thought I worked there. You were so passionate about getting the details right. How was I supposed to know you were one of the event planners? His expression softened with the memory. You told me I had no taste in wine. You ordered the most expensive bottle without even asking what it was. That's not taste, that's showing off. It worked though, didn't it? You agreed to have dinner with me. I agreed to have dinner with you because you offered to donate double your ticket price if I'd give you 1 hour to prove you weren't a complete Philistine. Elena's smile faded. That was the best night of my life, Adrian. You were charming and funny and so different from anyone I'd ever met. You made me feel seen in a way no one else ever had. But I didn't know who you were. Not really. You told me you worked in import/export, which I later learned was technically true, but wildly misleading. You didn't mention that your idea of conflict resolution involved baseball bats and shallow graves. I told you the truth about my family before I proposed. You gave me a sanitized version of the truth. You said your family had connections, and that some of your business ventures existed in gray areas. You didn't tell me you were heir to the largest crime syndicate on the East Coast. Would you have married me if I had? The question hung between them, weighted with impossible choices and roads not taken. Elena thought about it honestly, remembering the woman she'd been at 24, idealistic, romantic, convinced that love could conquer anything. No, she said finally. I wouldn't have. Something flickered in Adrian's eyes, pain, quickly masked. At least you're honest. That's all I have left, Adrian. Honesty. I loved you. God help me, I loved you so much it terrified me. But I couldn't live with what loving you meant. I couldn't watch you become your father and pretend it was okay. I couldn't raise a child in a world where violence is just the cost of doing business. So you ran. So I ran, she confirmed. I emptied our joint account, my half only. I didn't take any of your money, and I disappeared. I changed my name, changed my appearance, moved across the country. I did everything I could to make sure you'd never find me. You missed one thing. What's that? You forgot that I'm very, very good at finding people who don't want to be found. Adrian's smile held no humor. It took me longer than it should have. You were careful, I'll give you that. But 3 months ago, one of my people spotted you at a clinic. It took me all of 5 minutes to decide to let you keep hiding. Why? Elena couldn't keep the suspicion out of her voice. That doesn't sound like you. You want honesty? Here it is. I was angry, furious. I'd spent 2 years tearing myself apart looking for you, and when I finally found you, you were pregnant with my child and clearly had no intention of ever telling me. Part of me wanted to drag you back and make you face what you'd done. And the other part? The other part saw how scared you were, how exhausted, how hard you were fighting just to survive. And I realized that you'd rather live in a one-room apartment and work yourself to the bone than come back to me. He looked away, jaw tight. That's when I knew I'd lost you. Really, truly, lost you. The admission hung in the air between them, raw and painful. Elena felt something shift in her chest, some small crack in the armor she'd built around her heart. The money orders, she said quietly. Why didn't you just tell me they were from you? Would you have accepted them if you'd known? No? Exactly. Adrian turned back to her, his gray eyes intense. I couldn't stand by and watch you struggle, Elena. Call it controlling, call it whatever you want, but I couldn't do it. So I sent what I could in a way you might actually use. It wasn't enough. Nothing could be enough. But it was something. You can't solve everything with money, Adrian. I know that, but it's what I have to offer. He reached across the table, stopping just short of touching her hand. What else can I give you, Elena? Tell me what you need, and it's yours. I need you to understand that this isn't about money or resources or protection. It's about who you are, who you've chosen to be. Then I'll choose differently. The words came out fierce, almost desperate. I meant what I said. I'll walk away from the business, from all of it. You can't just walk away. There are people who depend on you, territories to manage, rivals who'll see your absence as weakness and move in to fill the void. Let them. I don't care. You're lying. You do care. It's who you are, Adrian. No. He did touch her hand then, despite her rules, his fingers wrapping around hers with desperate intensity. You're who I am. You and our daughter. Everything else is just noise. Elena wanted to believe him. The yearning in his voice, the vulnerability in his eyes, it all called to the part of her that had never stopped loving him. But she'd learned the hard way that wanting something to be true didn't make it so. Words are easy, Adrian. It's actions that matter. Then let me prove it to you. Give me a chance to show you I can change. How? By abandoning everything overnight? That's not change, that's running away. And we both know you're not the running away type. What do you want from me? The frustration in his voice was palpable. I'm offering you everything I have, and it's still not enough. Because I don't want your empire or your money or your protection. I want the man I fell in love with, the one who took me to art galleries and argued about wine and made me laugh until I couldn't breathe. Where did he go, Adrian? He grew up, Adrian said quietly. He learned that the world doesn't run on good intentions and romantic gestures. He learned that to protect the people he loves, he has to be harder than his enemies, stronger, more ruthless. And in the process, he became exactly what he was fighting against. The accusation hit home. She could see it in the way Adrian flinched. But before he could respond, Elena's phone buzzed in her purse. She almost ignored it, but some instinct made her check. The message was from her landlord. Pipe burst in your unit. Everything ruined. Need you to come sign insurance forms. Elena stared at the screen, feeling the last threads of control slipping through her fingers. Of course this would happen now, today, when she was already at her breaking point. What is it? Adrian asked, reading her expression. Nothing, just... She laughed, a slightly hysterical sound. My apartment flooded. Everything I own is apparently destroyed. She watched the information process across Adrian's face, saw the exact moment he began planning, organizing, solving. You'll stay at one of my properties. I have a place in... No! Elena, be reasonable. You're 8 months pregnant and you just lost your home. I'll figure something out. I always do. Why? The word came out almost anguished. Why do you have to do everything alone? Why can't you let me help you? Because your help comes with strings, Adrian. It always does. What if it didn't? He leaned forward, intensity radiating from him. What if I helped you with no expectations? No strings? No conditions? Just let me make sure you and our daughter are safe. Elena laughed bitterly. There's always conditions with you, even when you don't say them out loud. You're wrong. Am I? Tell me honestly, if I take your help now, will you really just let me walk away when the baby's born? The hesitation before he answered told her everything she needed to know. I didn't think so, she said, standing up. The movement sent a wave of dizziness through her, and she had to grip the table edge for balance. Adrian was on his feet instantly, hands hovering near her elbows without quite touching. Sit down. You're not well. I'm fine. You're pale as a ghost and swaying on your feet. Sit down. Maybe it was the exhaustion, or the shock of seeing him again, or the news about her apartment. Maybe it was all of it combined. But suddenly, Elena's legs wouldn't hold her anymore. She sank back into the chair, breathing hard. I'm calling a doctor, Adrian said, already reaching for his phone. I just need a minute. It's been a long day. It's been a catastrophic day, and you're in no condition to handle this alone. He was already dialing, his voice taking on the crisp, commanding tone that meant he was issuing orders. I need Dr. Morrison at the Lexington property. Immediately. I have my own doctor. Who you can't see because you don't have a home to go back to. Adrian ended the call and crouched in front of her again. Please, Elena, just for tonight. Let me make sure you're okay, both of you. She should say no. Every instinct screamed at her to refuse, to maintain her independence, to not give him an inch because he'd take a mile. But she was so tired, so desperately bone-deep tired, and the baby was moving restlessly, as if picking up on her stress. Just tonight, she heard herself say, in separate rooms. Of course. And this doesn't change anything. Come morning, we're back to the original plan. I sign the papers, and we go our separate ways. Adrian's expression suggested he thought otherwise, but he nodded. Whatever you need. He helped her to her feet with a gentleness that made her throat tight. Outside, a car was already waiting. Of course it was. Adrian probably had drivers stationed all over the city, ready to appear at a moment's notice. The vehicle was a far cry from her usual bus rides. Leather seats, tinted windows, and enough space that she could actually stretch out her aching legs. Adrian helped her in, then slid in beside her, maintaining a careful distance. As they pulled into traffic, Elena caught sight of her reflection in the window. She looked small and lost, a ghost of the woman she'd been. When had that happened? When had surviving become the best she could hope for? "What are you thinking?" Adrian asked quietly. "That I don't know who I am anymore. The woman who married you is gone. The woman I've been pretending to be for 2 years is a lie. And I have no idea who I'm supposed to become." "Maybe that's something we figure out together." "We're not together, Adrian. We're having a child together. That's not nothing. It's not everything either." He didn't argue, which somehow made it worse. They drove in silence through the city streets, and Elena watched the world blur past. Somewhere out there was the life she'd been building, small and precarious, but hers. Now even that was gone, swept away like everything else that had mattered. The Lexington property turned out to be a penthouse apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows and views that stretched across the entire city. It was beautiful in an impersonal way, like a hotel suite designed for people who never stayed long enough to make it home. Dr. Morrison arrived within 20 minutes, a woman in her 60s with kind eyes and steady hands. She examined Elena thoroughly, checking both her vitals and the baby's. "You're dehydrated and exhausted," she said finally. "But the baby seems fine. Strong heartbeat, good movement. You've been under significant stress recently, haven't you?" "You could say that." "Well, you need to rest. Real rest, not just sleep. And you need to eat properly. You're underweight for how far along you are." She turned to Adrian, who'd been hovering in the doorway. "Make sure she takes it easy. No arguments, no stress. Doctor's orders." After she left, Adrian showed Elena to one of the guest rooms. It was as impersonal as the rest of the apartment, but the bed looked like heaven. "There's clothes in the closet," Adrian said. They should fit. "And anything else you need, just ask." "How did you happen to have maternity clothes in a guest room?" He had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. "I had them brought in while Dr. Morrison was examining you." "Of course you did." Elena sank onto the bed, too exhausted to even be angry about his presumption. Adrian lingered in the doorway, clearly wanting to say something but holding back. Finally, he settled on, "Get some rest. We can talk more in the morning." "Adrian?" He turned back. "This doesn't change anything. You know that, right?" His smile was sad and knowing. "I know what you think right now, but you're not the only one who's changed in 2 years, Elena. Maybe it's time we both figure out who we're supposed to become." He closed the door softly behind him, leaving her alone with her thoughts and the daughter currently doing gymnastics against her ribs. "This is such a bad idea," Elena whispered to her belly. "Staying here, even for one night, he's going to use it against me somehow." But even as she said it, she was sinking into the mattress, her body overriding her brain's objections. Just one night, she told herself. One night to rest and regroup. Then she'd figure out her next move. Outside the window, the city glittered like a promise or a threat. Elena couldn't quite tell which anymore. Elena woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the disorienting sensation of having slept more deeply than she had in months. For a precious few seconds, she didn't remember where she was or why. Then reality crashed back. The divorce papers, Adrian's unexpected appearance, her flooded apartment, and the impossible choice she'd made to stay here, even for one night. She struggled to sit up, her pregnant belly making the simple movement a complex negotiation of leverage and momentum. The bedside clock read 9:47 a.m. She'd slept for almost 12 hours straight. The smell of coffee drifted under the door, followed by something else. Bacon, eggs, the rich scent of fresh bread. Her stomach growled traitorously, reminding her that she'd barely eaten yesterday. The muffin from the cafe had been her only meal. Elena found the maternity clothes Adrian had mentioned, soft yoga pants and an oversized sweater in a dove gray that probably cost more than a month of her former rent. She hated how good they felt against her skin, how perfectly they fit. He'd even gotten her size right, which meant he'd been paying closer attention than she'd realized. When she emerged from the bedroom, she found Adrian in the kitchen. He'd traded his suit for dark jeans and a simple black t-shirt, but somehow he still looked like he belonged on the cover of a magazine. He was scrambling eggs with the focused intensity he brought to everything, and the domestic scene was so at odds with everything she knew about him that she almost laughed. "You cook now?" she asked from the doorway. He glanced up, and something in his expression softened when he saw her. "I've always cooked. You just never let me because you said my idea of seasoning was aggressive. You put an entire bulb of garlic in pasta once. It was good. It was inedible." Despite herself, Elena felt a smile tugging at her lips. "We had to order pizza. And you were mad because I'd insisted my cooking would be fine." Adrian plated the eggs, adding bacon and toast. "I learned moderation since then, among other things." He set the plate in front of her at the kitchen island, along with a glass of orange juice and prenatal vitamins that hadn't been there last night. Of course, he'd had those delivered too. Elena wanted to refuse on principle, but her body had other ideas. She took a bite of eggs and almost moaned. When had food last tasted this good? "Eat," Adrian said, settling onto the stool beside her with his own plate. "Dr. Morrison said you're malnourished." "I'm not malnourished. I'm just surviving on instant ramen and whatever free samples you can grab at the grocery store." His tone wasn't accusatory, just sad. "I know what you've been eating, Elena. My people have been watching you, remember? That's creepy, you know, having people watch me. I needed to know you were safe. You needed to maintain control. There's a difference." But she kept eating because arguing on an empty stomach seemed foolish. They ate in silence for a while, the morning light painting everything in shades of gold. It was almost peaceful, which made Elena more nervous than if Adrian had been overtly trying to manipulate her. "I made some calls this morning," he said finally, "about your apartment. Adrian, just listen. The damage is extensive. The entire building is being evacuated while they deal with the water and mold. Your landlord is claiming the insurance won't cover tenant belongings because the pipe burst was due to negligence. His negligence, but he's trying to pin it on resident." Elena's stomach sank. "So I've lost everything." "Not everything. I had a team go through your unit before it was sealed off. They salvaged what they could." He pulled out his phone, showing her photos. "Some clothes, documents, a few personal items. Everything's being cleaned and dried." She scrolled through the images, seeing her meager possessions cataloged with clinical precision. It shouldn't have hurt. She'd owned so little, had deliberately kept her life small and portable. But seeing it reduced to a handful of boxes made something in her chest constrict. "There was a photo album," she said quietly. "Green cover, water-stained. Did they find it?" Adrian's expression told her the answer before he spoke. "I'm sorry." The album had contained pictures from before. Her parents' wedding photo, images of her childhood, the few snapshots she'd managed to take when she'd fled. Irreplaceable pieces of a life that now only existed in memory. "It's fine," she lied. "They were just pictures. They were your history." Adrian's hand covered hers on the counter. "I'm sorry, Elena. I know what that meant to you." She pulled away from his touch, needing distance. "What time is it? I should start looking for a new place." "You're not going anywhere today," Dr. Morrison said. "Dr. Morrison isn't in charge of my life. Neither are you." Elena stood, ignoring the way her back protested. "I appreciate the meal and the bed for the night, but this doesn't change our arrangement. I need to find somewhere to stay, and you need to sign those divorce papers." "Sit down, Elena." "Don't tell me what to pick in, please." The words stopped her mid-sentence. "Please just sit down and hear me out. 5 minutes, that's all I'm asking." Against her better judgment, she sat. 5 minutes. Adrian took a breath, and she could see him choosing his words carefully. "I spent all night thinking about what you said, about who I've become, about what I've lost along the way. And you're right. I did become my father, maybe not in every way, but in the ways that matter. I let the business consume me because it was easier than dealing with the truth." "What truth?" "That I was terrified." The admission seemed to cost him. "My father ruled through fear and strength. He never showed weakness, never admitted doubt. And when he died and all of it fell to me, I thought the only way to survive was to be exactly like him. Harder, more ruthless. Because the moment anyone saw vulnerability, they'd tear me apart." Elena studied his face, looking for the lie, the manipulation, but all she saw was raw honesty. "So you pushed everyone away." "I pushed you away," he corrected. The one person who actually gave a damn about who I was underneath all the armor, and by the time I realized what I was doing, you were already planning your escape. You knew? Not consciously, but looking back, all the signs were there. You stopped arguing with me about business decisions, stopped asking me to come to bed when I worked late, stopped looking at me like I was someone worth saving. His voice dropped to barely above a whisper. You stopped seeing me, Elena, and that's when I knew I'd already lost you. She wanted to deny it, but couldn't. He was right. Somewhere in those final months, she'd given up trying to reach the man she'd married and started planning her exit strategy. I couldn't keep fighting a battle I was never going to win, she said. You wanted the Empire more than you wanted me. No, I wanted to be worthy of you, and the only way I knew how was to build something so powerful that nothing could ever threaten you. I thought if I controlled enough territory, had enough influence, I could keep you safe from all the people who'd want to hurt me through you. So you became the thing I needed protection from. Adrian flinched but didn't argue. Yes, and now you expect me to believe you've changed overnight? That seeing me pregnant suddenly made you realize the error of your ways? No. I expect you to give me the chance to prove I can change. Not overnight, not in some dramatic gesture, but slowly, deliberately, by making different choices every single day. Words, Adrian, they're just words until you back them up with action. Then let me show you. He pulled out his phone again, pulling up a document. This is a letter of resignation from the family business. I'm transferring my interests to a management committee made up of people I trust. The territories, the operations, all of it, I'm walking away. Elena stared at the screen, barely processing what she was reading. This is insane. You can't just abandon everything your father built. Watch me. I'm having it notarized this afternoon. Adrian, think about this. The people who work for you, who depend on you, what happens to them? They'll be taken care of. The committee will maintain operations, and I've established a trust to ensure everyone on the payroll continues to be paid. No one loses their job or their livelihood. And your enemies? The families who've been waiting for any sign of weakness? Let them come. I don't care anymore. He set the phone down, his gray eyes boring into hers. Don't you understand, Elena? None of it matters. The power, the territory, the legacy, it's all meaningless if I lose you and our daughter. You keep saying that, but I don't think you've really thought through what you're offering. You've built your entire identity around being Adrian Voss, heir to the Empire. Who are you without that? I guess I'll find out. His smile was self-deprecating. Terrifying, isn't it? I've spent my whole life knowing exactly who I was and what I was supposed to do. Now I'm stepping into complete uncertainty. But you did it 2 years ago. You left everything you knew and built a new life from nothing. If you could do that, maybe I can too. The parallel hit harder than Elena expected. She had reinvented herself, had learned to survive without the safety net of money and power. It had been brutal and exhausting and often terrifying. Could Adrian really handle that kind of freefall? It's not the same, she said. I was running from something. You'd be running toward something that might not even exist anymore. You mean toward you. I mean toward a fantasy of what we used to be. People don't just go back to who they were, Adrian. Too much has happened. Too much has changed. I'm not asking to go back. I'm asking for the chance to build something new, something that doesn't involve blood and violence and constant vigilance. He reached across the counter but stopped short of touching her. I'm asking you to let me be a father to our daughter, to let me prove I can be the man you needed me to be all along. Elena felt tears burning in her eyes and hated herself for it. She'd promised herself she wouldn't cry, wouldn't show weakness. You hurt me, Adrian. You made me feel small and powerless and trapped. Do you have any idea what it was like living in that house? Every decision monitored, every move tracked. I couldn't even go to the grocery store without bodyguards following me. I was protecting you. You were controlling me. The words burst out with more force than she'd intended. There's a difference between protection and possession, and you never learned where that line was. You treated me like something precious that needed to be locked away in a vault, not like a partner with thoughts and needs of her own. You're right. The admission seemed to deflate him. I was controlling. I justified it by telling myself it was for your safety, but the truth is, I was terrified of losing you. So I held on tighter and tighter until you couldn't breathe. And now you expect me to believe you'll just let go? That you won't fall back into those same patterns the moment things get difficult? I expect you to be skeptical. I expect you to test me and push back and call me out when I slip into old habits. Because I will slip up, Elena. I'm not going to transform into some perfect man overnight, but I'll keep trying. Every single day, I'll try to be better than I was the day before. The baby kicked hard, as if offering her own opinion on the conversation. Elena pressed a hand to her belly, feeling the flutter of movement. In a few weeks, maybe less, this tiny person would be born into whatever mess Elena and Adrian created. That thought terrified her more than anything else. I need time, she said finally. I can't make any promises or commitments right now. My brain is too scrambled, too tired. Take all the time you need. Just don't disappear again. Please. Where would I even go? My apartment is flooded. I have no job, no savings. Stay here. Absolutely not. Then let me set you up somewhere else. A place of your own, no strings attached. I'll pay the rent and expenses, and you'll have complete freedom to come and go as you please. That's still strings, Adrian. That's still you controlling the situation. Then tell me what would work for you, because letting you sleep on the street or in some shelter isn't an option I'm willing to consider. Elena wanted to argue that it wasn't his choice, that she'd survived worse than temporary homelessness. But the truth was, she was 8 months pregnant and exhausted and running out of options. Pride was a luxury she couldn't afford right now. Temporary, she said firmly. Whatever arrangement we make, it's temporary until I figure out my next move. Agreed. And I want it in writing. A lease or contract or whatever, proving I have legal rights to the space. I won't be dependent on your goodwill for a roof over my head. Done. I'll have my lawyer draw up papers this afternoon. Not your personal lawyer, someone independent. Adrian's jaw tightened. Clearly he didn't like the implication that he might manipulate the situation, but he nodded. I'll provide a list of 3 firms for you to choose from. You pick which one handles the paperwork. Okay? Elena took a breath, feeling like she was stepping off a cliff. Okay. But this doesn't mean we're together. This doesn't mean I forgive you. This just means I'm accepting your help because I don't have better options right now. I understand. And you signed the divorce papers. Today. That's non-negotiable. The words hung in the air between them, and Elena watched Adrian wrestle with his response. Finally, he spoke, each word carefully measured. I'll sign papers agreeing to separation and establishing custody arrangements for our daughter, but I won't sign away my parental rights. I won't agree to being erased from her life. It's the best I can offer, Elena. I'll give you space, I'll give you independence, I'll give you everything you need to build the life you want. But I won't sign a document that says I'm not her father. I can't do that. Part of her wanted to fight, to demand all or nothing. But she could see in his eyes that this was his line in the sand, the one thing he wouldn't compromise on. And if she was being honest with herself, did she really want her daughter to grow up without a father? Or did she just want to punish Adrian for his mistakes? Joint custody, she said slowly, working through the implications. But I get primary placement, and you don't get to use your connections or your money to manipulate the situation. How would that even work? I have money, Elena. I can't just pretend I don't. No, but you can agree to let a judge decide custody based on what's best for her, not what your expensive lawyers can argue. No intimidation, no pressure, no buying off officials. You really think I'd do that? I think you'd do whatever it takes to win. That's who you are. Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Fair enough. I agree to your terms. Joint custody, established through proper legal channels, with no interference from me beyond standard legal representation. Elena searched his face for signs of deception, but found only weary resignation. Maybe he really was serious about changing, or maybe he was just saying what she needed to hear until he could maneuver her back into a position of dependence. Time would tell. I need to make some calls, she said, standing up. Figure out what happened with my jobs, whether I still have them. I can help with... No. I handle my own employment situation. She softened her tone slightly at his wounded expression. I appreciate the offer, but I need to do this myself. He nodded, backing off. There's a study down the hall. You can use it for privacy. The study was exactly what she'd expected. Rich leather and dark wood, built-in bookshelves lined with volumes that probably cost more than she'd earned in a year. But the desk was clear and the chair comfortable, and when she closed the door, blessed silence surrounded her. Elena pulled out her phone, dreading the conversations ahead. She'd been working 2 jobs, waitressing at a diner during the day and cleaning offices at night. Neither paid well, but combined they'd been enough to survive on. The diner answered on the 3rd ring. "Rosie's, this is Marlene." "Marlene, it's Elena. I'm so sorry I didn't call yesterday, but there was an emergency." "Honey, I heard about the flooding. You okay?" Elena blinked, surprised. "How did you hear about that?" "Your landlord called looking for you, said he needed you to sign some papers. You lose everything?" "Pretty much." Marlene sighed, and Elena could picture the older woman shaking her head. "Well, don't you worry about the shifts. Take the time you need to get sorted. Your job's waiting when you're ready." A relief flooded through her. "Thank you. I'll be back as soon as I can." "You sure you should be working in your condition? You look ready to pop any day now." "I've got a few weeks yet, and I need the money." "Stubborn girl. All right, but you take care of yourself. That baby needs you healthy." The cleaning company was less understanding. The supervisor informed her curtly that missing a shift without notice was grounds for termination, emergency or not. Elena tried to explain, but the woman cut her off. "You're replaceable, Ward. I got a dozen people waiting for your hours. Don't bother coming back." The line went dead. Elena sat there, staring at her phone. Just like that, half her income was gone. She still had the diner, at least, but that wouldn't be enough to cover rent and baby expenses and everything else she'd need. A knock at the door pulled her from her spiraling thoughts. Adrian stepped in, reading her expression with uncomfortable accuracy. "Bad news?" "Lost one of my jobs. The cleaning company fired me." She hated how defeated she sounded. "You don't need to work, Elena. I can sit." "Don't. Please don't finish that sentence." She pressed her fingers to her temples, fighting off a headache. "I know you want to solve everything with money, but that's not how this works. I need to be able to support myself and the baby." "Why? What are you trying to prove?" "That I'm not helpless, that I don't need you to survive." The words came out sharper than intended. "I spent our entire marriage being taken care of, being provided for. And you know what? It made me weak. When I left, I had no job skills, no work experience, no idea how to function in the real world. It took me months just to figure out how to budget for groceries." Adrian sat down in the chair across from her, and she saw something like shame cross his features. "I never thought about it that way. I thought I was taking care of you." "You were, but you were also making me dependent. Every choice you made for me was one less choice I learned to make for myself." Elena met his eyes. "That's why I can't just let you swoop in and fix everything now. I need to know I can stand on my own 2 feet. Oh, even 8 months pregnant and homeless?" "Especially then." She managed a weak smile. "Pride is all I have left, Adrian. Don't ask me to give that up too." He studied her for a long moment, something shifting in his expression. "You're stronger than I ever gave you credit for. I see that now. I had to be. You left me no choice. I know. And I'm sorry for that. Truly." He stood, moving toward the door. "I'll leave you alone." "But Elena? There's a difference between accepting help and being helpless. Just because I want to make sure you and the baby are safe doesn't mean I think you're weak." After he left, Elena sat in the quiet study, one hand on her belly. The baby was awake and active, little kicks and rolls that reminded her of what was at stake. In a few weeks, she'd be responsible for another human being. The thought was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "This is Marcus Chen. Mr. Voss asked me to send you this list of law firms. Any of the 3 would serve your interests well. Let me know your choice and I'll initiate contact." Elena opened the attachment, scanning the names. All were reputable firms specializing in family law. All had strong records of representing clients against powerful opponents. Adrian had, it seemed, actually kept his word about giving her independent legal representation. It was such a small thing, but it shifted something in her chest. Maybe he really was trying. She selected the second firm on the list, Brennan and Associates, and texted Marcus back her choice. Within minutes, her phone rang with a call from Jennifer Brennan herself. "Ms. Ward, I understand you need representation in a custody matter." "Yes, it's complicated." "They usually are. Why don't you tell me about it? Elena spent the next hour laying out the situation. Her marriage to Adrian, her flight 2 years ago, the pregnancy she'd hidden, and now the impossible situation she found herself in. Jennifer Brennan listened without judgment, asking pointed questions that made it clear she understood exactly what she was dealing with. All right, Jennifer said when Elena finished. Here's what I recommend. We draw up a temporary custody agreement that gives you primary placement but allows supervised visitation for Mr. Voss. It'll include provisions about decision-making authority, financial support, and conditions under which either party can request modifications. Supervised visitation? You think that's necessary? I think it's smart. Your estranged husband, has significant resources and connections. Supervised visits ensure there's always a witness to the time he spends with your daughter. It protects both of you. Elena hadn't thought of it that way, but Jennifer was right. Okay, what about his offer to step away from his business? Get it in writing. If he's serious about leaving that life, we document it. Make it part of the custody agreement, maintaining a lifestyle that doesn't expose the child to criminal activity. Will that hold up legally? Depends on how it's worded, but it sends a clear message about your expectations. Jennifer paused. Miss Ward, can I be frank with you? Please. Men like Adrian Voss don't change overnight. They don't walk away from power and wealth because of a conversation. If he's serious about this, it'll be a long, messy process with setbacks and struggles. Are you prepared for that? I don't know, Elena admitted. Part of me thinks this is all an act, that he's just saying what I need to hear until he can trap me again. Trust your instincts, but also keep records. Document everything, every conversation, every promise, every interaction. If this goes sideways, you'll need evidence. They talked for another 20 minutes, hammering out details. By the time Elena hung up, she felt like she had at least some control over the situation. It wasn't much, but it was something. When she emerged from the study, she found Adrian in the living room, staring out at the city skyline. He'd changed into a suit, dark charcoal with a crisp white shirt. The transformation from domestic morning Adrian to business Adrian was jarring. Going somewhere? She asked. He turned and she saw the grim determination in his eyes. To sign those resignation papers, and to have some difficult conversations with people who won't be happy about my decision. Is it safe? Walking away like this? Probably not. But that's not your problem to worry about. Adrian, I mean it, Elena. Whatever happens as a result of my choices, that's on me. You and the baby stay out of it. He grabbed a jacket from the back of the sofa. There's food in the fridge. Mrs. Chen will be by this afternoon to check on you. She's my housekeeper, completely trustworthy. If you need anything at all, call me. He was almost to the door when Elena's voice stopped him. Be careful. He looked back, surprise flickering across his face. I will. I mean it. Whatever our issues, I don't want you to get hurt because of this. Something in his expression softened. I'll come back, Elena. I promise. Then he was gone, and Elena was alone in the enormous apartment. She wandered through the rooms, taking in the expensive art and designer furniture that probably cost more than everything she'd owned in her entire life. It felt like a museum, beautiful but cold. In the master bedroom, she found traces of Adrian's life. A watch on the nightstand, a book on the chair, clothes in the closet, but nothing personal, nothing that spoke to who he was beneath the armor. It was like he'd stripped away anything that might reveal vulnerability. Her phone buzzed, a text from Adrian. Lawyers are drawing up the custody agreement. Should have something for you to review tomorrow. And I'm transferring money to an account in your name. Not negotiable. You need resources for the baby. Elena wanted to argue, but practical reality intervened. She did need resources. Pride wouldn't buy diapers or pay medical bills. She texted back, "How much?" His response came immediately. "Enough that you never have to worry about money again. But you have complete control over it. I can't access the account." Adrian, that's too much. It's not nearly enough. But it's a start. Elena stared at the phone, emotions warring inside her. Part of her wanted to refuse, to maintain her independence at all costs. But another part, the practical, exhausted part that had been struggling for 2 years, whispered that maybe it was okay to accept help. Maybe accepting support didn't mean giving up control. She was still debating when Mrs. Chen arrived, a tiny woman in her 60s with sharp eyes, and a no-nonsense demeanor that reminded Elena of her own grandmother. She bustled in with grocery bags and cleaning supplies, taking in Elena's appearance with a single comprehensive glance. "You need to eat more," she declared. "Too skinny. Baby needs nutrients." "I eat plenty." You eat garbage. I make you proper food." She headed for the kitchen without waiting for permission. Elena followed, bemused. "Did Adrian tell you to say that?" "Mr. Voss tells me nothing about nutrition. I have eyes. I see malnourished pregnant woman. I fix." Mrs. Chen began unpacking groceries with brisk efficiency. "You are the wife, yes? The one who ran away?" "Yes, though technically we're getting divorced." "Technically," Mrs. Chen snorted. "That man has been miserable for 2 years, like ghost haunting his own life. Now you come back. He has purpose again." "It's not that simple." "Of course not simple. Love, never simple." "But you're here. He is trying. That is something." She pulled out a knife and began chopping vegetables with practiced precision. "You know what his father was like?" Elena shook her head. "Terrible man. Cold, cruel. Beat Adrian when he was small, said it would make him strong. Mr. Voss learned early that showing feeling meant getting hurt." Mrs. Chen's knife flashed through a carrot. "When he met you, first time I saw him smile. Really smile, not the fake one for business. You made him human again. Then I left." "Oh, then you ran from something that scared you. Smart woman runs from danger." Mrs. Chen looked up, her dark eyes knowing. "Question is, are you running toward something better or just running?" The words hit harder than they should have. Elena sank into a chair watching Mrs. Chen cook. "I don't know anymore. I thought I was building a new life, but maybe I was just hiding." Building and hiding sometimes look the same. Difference is what you do next. She slid chopped vegetables into a pan with a sizzle. "Mr. Voss is trying to change. Hard for a man like him. You going to meet him halfway?" "I don't know if I can trust him." "Trust is earned, but cannot earn what you will not risk giving." Mrs. Chen stirred the vegetables, releasing aromatic steam. "You have baby coming soon. She needs father. Question is, will you let him be one?" Elena pressed a hand to her belly, feeling the baby shift. What if he goes back to being who he was? What if this is all temporary? What if sun does not rise tomorrow? What if rain falls up instead of down? Mrs. Chen shook her head. Cannot live life on what-ifs. Can only make best choice with information you have now. When did you become so wise? 68 years of living. Pay attention to life. Life teaches you things. She plated the stir-fried vegetables along with rice and chicken. Eat. Baby needs strength. Elena ate, and it was delicious. Simple, but perfectly seasoned, the kind of home cooking she'd been craving without realizing it. Mrs. Chen watched her with satisfaction, occasionally adding more food to her plate despite Elena's protests. "Mr. Voss said you lost your apartment," Mrs. Chen said. "Where are you planning to go?" "I don't know yet. He offered to set me up somewhere, but I'm not sure about accepting." Pride is expensive luxury when you are about to have baby. It's not about pride. Yes, it is. Pride and fear, all mixed up together. Mrs. Chen began cleaning up the kitchen. "You're afraid if you accept help, you give him power over you again. But power only comes from what you give away. If you set boundaries, maintain independence, help is just help." Elena wanted to argue, but couldn't. Mrs. Chen was right. She was letting fear drive her decisions. Fear of being controlled, of losing herself, of making the same mistakes again. "I need to think about it," she said finally. "Thinking is good. But don't think so long you end up with nowhere to go when baby comes." Mrs. Chen dried her hands. "I will be back tomorrow. You need anything, you call. Number is on the refrigerator." After she left, Elena felt the exhaustion creeping back. She made her way to the guest room and lay down, intending just to rest her eyes for a moment. She woke hours later to darkness and the sound of the front door opening, footsteps in the hallway, then a pause outside her door. She held her breath, listening. "Elena?" Adrian's voice quiet. "You awake?" "Yes." The door opened and he was silhouetted against the hallway light. Even in shadow, she could see the tension in his shoulders. "How did it go?" she asked. "About as well as expected. Lot of angry people. Few threats. One attempt at bribery. He leaned against the door frame. But the papers are signed. As of this afternoon, I'm officially out of the family business. Just like that? Just like that. He sounded exhausted. The committee takes over tomorrow. I'll maintain a silent financial interest, but no operational control. Do you regret it? He was quiet for a long moment. Ask me again in a year. Right now, I'm too numb to feel much of anything except relief. Elena sat up, studying his face in the dim light. Are you okay? I don't know. It feels like I just cut off a limb. Something that was part of me for so long I forgot it was supposed to be separate. He ran a hand through his hair. But I know it was necessary. For you, for our daughter. Don't do this just for us. That's too much pressure. Then I'm doing it for me. Because the man I was becoming scared even me. And if I kept going down that path, I'd lose everything that actually matters. He pushed off the door frame, and for a moment Elena thought he was going to leave. Instead, he moved closer, crouching beside the bed so they were at eye level. I spoke with Jennifer Brennan, he said. She's tough. Good choice. She seems competent. She's one of the best family lawyers in the state. She'll protect your interests. His hand moved like he wanted to touch her, then fell back. I told her I'll agree to whatever custody arrangement you want. Supervised visits, restricted access, whatever makes you feel safe. Adrian, I mean it, Elena. I'm not going to fight you on this. If you need me to prove I can be trusted around our daughter, I'll prove it, however long it takes. The sincerity in his voice undid something in her chest. I spoke with Mrs. Chen today. She told me about your father. His expression shuddered. What about him? That he hurt you, that he taught you love meant weakness. Mrs. Chen talks too much. Maybe. But it explains some things. Why you controlled everything. Why you couldn't show vulnerability. You learned early that emotions were dangerous. Armchair psychology doesn't change what I did to you. No. But understanding why you did it makes it easier to believe you can change. Elena took a breath, making a decision that terrified her. I want to try. To see if we can co-parent without destroying each other. Hope flared in his eyes. Yeah? Yeah. But we take it slow. No rushing into anything. And if at any point I feel like you're slipping back into old patterns, I walk. No questions, no arguments. Deal. He held out his hand like they were sealing a business arrangement. Elena took it, feeling the calluses on his palm, the strength in his grip. For a moment, they just stayed like that, connected by this fragile promise. Then the baby kicked, hard enough that Adrian felt it through their joined hands. His eyes went wide. She's strong, he whispered. Takes after her father. Elena meant it as a joke, but the words came out soft, almost tender. Adrian's thumb traced circles on the back of her hand. Would it be okay if I... Go ahead. He placed his free hand on her belly, palms spreading wide across the curve. The baby kicked again, as if showing off. Adrian laughed, the sound full of wonder and something that might have been tears. Hi, little one, he murmured. I'm your dad, and I promise I'm going to figure out how to be good at this. Elena felt her own eyes burn. This was dangerous territory, letting him in like this. But watching him connect with their daughter, seeing the pure joy on his face, she couldn't bring herself to pull away. They stayed like that until Elena's eyes grew heavy and sleep pulled her under. The last thing she remembered was Adrian's voice, soft in the darkness, promising their daughter the world. The next 2 weeks fell into an unexpected rhythm that felt both foreign and oddly comfortable. Elena remained in the guest room at Adrian's penthouse, while Jennifer Brennan worked on the custody agreement, and Adrian searched for an apartment that met Elena's exacting specifications, close to her doctor, near public transportation, in a neighborhood with good schools for the future. He sent her listings daily, and she rejected them almost as quickly, finding fault with each one. Too expensive, too isolated, too close to his properties. She knew she was stalling, but couldn't quite bring herself to admit why. The truth was, being around Adrian was easier than she'd expected. He kept his distance, respected her boundaries, and somehow anticipated her needs without being overbearing. When her back ached, heating pads appeared. When she craved specific foods at odd hours, they materialized in the kitchen. He never made a production of it, never asked for credit or acknowledgement. Things simply appeared as if by magic. Mrs. Chen visited daily, cooking elaborate meals and offering unsolicited commentary on everything from Elena's posture to Adrian's choice of ties. She'd become an unexpected ally, a buffer between Elena and Adrian that made the enforced proximity bearable. On a Thursday afternoon, Elena was folding the tiny clothes she'd managed to salvage from her apartment when Adrian appeared in the doorway of the guest room. He looked hesitant, almost nervous, an expression so at odds with his usual confidence that it made her pause. "What's wrong?" she asked. "Nothing's wrong. I have something to show you. If you're up for a short drive." Elena's suspicion flared immediately. "Where?" "It's a surprise. A good one, I promise." "I don't like surprises." "I know, but I think you'll like this one." He held out his hand. "Trust me, just this once." Shouldn't. Every instinct screamed at her to say no, to maintain her walls. But there was something in his eyes, vulnerability mixed with hope, that made her take his hand. "If this is some kind of manipulation, it's not, I swear." The drive took them out of the city center, into a neighborhood Elena didn't recognize. Tree-lined streets gave way to smaller buildings, family homes with yards where children played. It was the kind of place she'd dreamed about during her pregnancy, imagining a life far removed from penthouses and power. Adrian pulled up in front of a modest 3-story building with flower boxes in the windows and a small park across the street. He killed the engine and turned to her. "Before you say anything, just look, please." They went inside and Adrian led her to a second-floor apartment. When he opened the door, Elena's breath caught. It was perfect. Hardwood floors worn smooth with age, large windows that let in streams of afternoon light, a kitchen with enough space to actually cook. 2 bedrooms, one of which had clearly been set up as a nursery, soft yellow walls, a crib by the window, a rocking chair in the corner. "How did you—" Elena walked through the space, touching the walls, the furniture, trying to process what she was seeing. "Mrs. Chen helped. She said you liked yellow, and that you'd want something cozy, not sterile." Adrian stayed near the door, watching her explore. "The building is owned by a family trust, not connected to my business interests. The rent is subsidized housing, legal and legitimate. You'd qualify based on your income from the diner." "Adrian, this is too much. Actually, it's not enough. But it's what you said you wanted. Independence, your own space, somewhere safe to raise our daughter." He pulled papers from his jacket pocket. "This is a standard lease agreement. Your name only. I'm not on it. Can't access the apartment without your permission. Jennifer Brennan already reviewed it and said it's clean." Elena took the papers with trembling hands, scanning the terms. He was telling the truth. It was a straightforward rental agreement with no hidden clauses or complications. "Why?" she asked. "Why go to all this trouble?" "Because you were right. About all of it. I spent our marriage trying to control everything, including you. And I justified it by calling it protection. But really, it was fear. Fear of losing you. Fear of not being enough. Fear that if I gave you freedom, you'd realize you didn't need me." He moved closer, but still maintained careful distance. "This time, I'm doing it differently. I'm giving you the freedom to choose, even if you choose to walk away. Because that's what love is supposed to be, trusting someone enough to let them go." Elena felt tears sliding down her cheeks and didn't bother wiping them away. "You're making this really hard to stay angry at you." "Good. I'm trying to be less terrible." His smile was self-deprecating. "Is it working?" "A little." She walked to the window, looking down at the park where a father pushed his daughter on a swing. "What happens after the baby comes? Do you just disappear from our lives?" "That's up to you. I'll take whatever you're willing to give me. Supervised visits once a week, phone calls, updates about how she's doing. Or more, if you decide you can trust me with more." "And if I never trust you again?" The question hung heavy in the air. Adrian was quiet for a long moment before answering. "Then I'll spend the rest of my life proving I'm worthy of it, even if I never get there. Because you two are worth it. You're worth everything." Elena turned back to face him, studying the man who'd been her husband, her jailer, and now something she couldn't quite define. He looked different than he had 2 weeks ago, less polished, more raw, like he'd shed some protective layer and couldn't quite figure out how to function without it. "I want to try," she heard herself say. "Not us getting back together. I'm not ready for that. Might never be ready for that. but co-parenting. Being in each other's lives for her sake. Hope blazed across Adrian's face. Yeah? Yeah, but we do it right this time. Honest communication, clear boundaries, mutual respect. And the first time you try to control or manipulate me, I'm done. No second chances. Understood. He held out his hand again. Partners? For our daughter? Elena took his hand, sealing the agreement. Partners. They spent the next hour discussing logistics. When she'd move in, what furniture she'd need, how they'd handle doctor's appointments and birthing classes. It felt surreal, planning a future together while maintaining careful emotional distance. As they were leaving, Elena paused in the nursery doorway. Did you pick out the crib? Mrs. Chen did. She said it was the safest model, highest ratings for stability. Adrian followed her gaze. But I bought the mobile, the one with the stars. Elena looked up at the gentle constellation of stars and moons hanging above the crib, slowly rotating in the breeze from the window. She's going to love it. I hope so. I hope... He stopped, seeming to struggle with words. I hope I can be what she needs, what you both need. You will be, as long as you keep trying. The drive back was quiet, but it was a comfortable silence rather than the tense standoffs of previous days. Elena found herself sneaking glances at Adrian, noticing small details, the slight relaxation in his shoulders, the way his grip on the steering wheel had loosened, the absence of the constant vigilance that had defined him before. Maybe people could change. Maybe he really was becoming someone different. Or maybe she was just seeing what she wanted to see. That night, Elena lay in the guest room and tried to imagine her future in that sunny apartment with the yellow nursery. She pictured mornings feeding the baby while looking out at the park, afternoons walking the neighborhood, evenings rocking her daughter to sleep under those stars. And in every image, despite her best efforts, Adrian was there too. Not controlling or dominating, just present. A shadow in the doorway, a hand on her shoulder, a partner sharing the load. She fell asleep with one hand on her belly, whispering promises to the daughter who would arrive soon and change everything. The next morning brought Jennifer Brennan to the penthouse with a stack of papers requiring signatures. Elena had moved to the living room where better light made reading easier, and Adrian hovered nearby, pretending to work on his laptop while obviously listening to every word. This is the custody agreement, Jennifer said, spreading documents across the coffee table. Joint legal custody, with you having primary physical placement. Adrian gets supervised visitation initially, 4 hours per week, supervised by a mutually agreed upon third party. After 6 months, we can reassess and potentially move to unsupervised visits if both parties agree. Elena scanned the pages, looking for traps. And the financial arrangements? Child support calculated using standard state guidelines, plus medical expenses and a college fund. Nothing excessive, nothing that could be construed as buying access. Jennifer glanced at Adrian. Mr. Voss agreed to keep it reasonable. Reasonable for me isn't reasonable for most people, Adrian said quietly. But I understand why the limits are necessary. What about decision-making? Elena asked. Medical choices, education, religion? Joint decision-making for major issues. Day-to-day decisions are yours since she'll be with you primarily. And there's a clause prohibiting exposure to criminal activity or dangerous situations. Elena looked up at Adrian. Did you really agree to all this? Every word. Jennifer made sure I understood that any violation could result in losing all custody rights. His expression was serious. I won't risk that, Elena. I won't risk losing her. After Jennifer left, Elena and Adrian sat in the living room, the signed custody agreement between them like a bridge neither quite knew how to cross. So we're really doing this, Elena said. Looks like it. You'll be a father in a few weeks. Terrifying, isn't it? Adrian's smile was shaky. I have no idea what I'm doing. Neither do I. I've read all the books, taken the classes, and I still feel completely unprepared. At least you have maternal instinct or whatever. Elena laughed. I don't think that's real. I think we're all just making it up as we go along and pretending we know what we're doing. That's not reassuring. It's not supposed to be. Parenting's terrifying. She shifted position, trying to ease the constant pressure on her lower back. But I guess we figure it out together. Adrian noticed her discomfort immediately. Your back again? It's always my back now. She's sitting right on my spine. There's a prenatal massage therapist I know. She could... Adrian. Right, sorry, trying to fix things. He rubbed the back of his neck. Old habits. You can suggest things, just don't decide for me. Elena hesitated, then added, but actually, a massage sounds amazing. Do you have her number? The surprise on his face was almost comical. Really? Really, my back is killing me, and pride doesn't make good company when you're in pain. He pulled out his phone, already texting. She'll be here in an hour. Of course she will. But Elena said it with amusement rather than annoyance. The massage helped, and afterward Elena felt more relaxed than she had in weeks. She was dozing on the couch when her phone rang, an unknown number with a local area code. Hello? Elena Ward? The voice was male, unfamiliar, with an edge that made her instantly wary. Who is this? Someone who knows you've been staying with Adrian Voss. Someone who thinks that's very interesting information. Elena's blood ran cold. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't play stupid. We've been watching. We know about the baby. We know Voss stepped away from the family business, and we know that makes him weak. Leave me alone. She moved to end the call, but the man's next words stopped her. Tell Voss that old debts don't disappear just because he wants to play house. Tell him the Castellanos remember, and they're coming to collect. The line went dead. Elena sat frozen, the phone shaking in her hand. The Castellanos. The family Adrian had been moving against when she'd fled, the reason she'd run in the first place. Adrian emerged from his study, took one look at her face, and was across the room in seconds. What happened? Someone called. He said... Her voice broke. He mentioned the Castellanos. He said they're coming. Every trace of the softer Adrian vanished, replaced by the cold strategist she remembered. What exactly did he say? Word for word. She repeated the conversation, watching his expression darken with each sentence. When she finished, he was already on his phone, barking orders in a tone that allowed no argument. I want a security detail on this building immediately. Full sweep for surveillance devices, and find out how the hell someone got her private number. He paused, listening. I don't care what it takes. Find them. Adrian, you said you were out. You said, I am out. But apparently that doesn't mean they're done with me. He crouched in front of her, hands gripping her knees. Elena, I need you to listen very carefully. This is exactly what I was afraid of. This is why I wanted you protected. So, this is my fault? For leaving you? No. This is their fault for thinking they can use you to get to me. His jaw tightened. But it means we need to change plans. That apartment isn't safe. You need to be somewhere with better security. You're doing it again, making decisions for me. Someone just threatened you and our unborn child. Forgive me for wanting you alive. Elena pressed her hands to her belly, feeling the baby's agitated movements. What do the Castellanos want? Revenge, territory, to prove that my stepping away was weakness they can exploit. Adrian stood, pacing. When I took over from my father, one of my first moves was to absorb their drug distribution network. It made them look ineffective, vulnerable. They've been waiting for an opportunity to strike back. And now they think I'm that opportunity. You're the most valuable thing in my world. Of course you're a target. He stopped pacing, turning to face her. I won't let them touch you. Or her. Whatever it takes. What happened to walking away? To choosing a different life? I did walk away. But I can't walk away from protecting my family. The words came out fierce. You want me to be different, Elena? Fine. I'll be different. But I won't be so different that I let someone hurt you. Before Elena could respond, Adrian's phone rang. He answered, listened, and his face went white. When? A pause. How many? Another pause. Understood. Lockdown protocol. Now. He ended the call and turned to Elena with an expression that made her stomach drop. Someone tried to access the building's security system remotely. They didn't get through our firewalls, but they were probing for weaknesses. Oh my God. We're moving you, tonight, somewhere they can't find you. Adrian, no, I'm not running again. I'm not spending the rest of my life hiding. You won't have to. Give me 72 hours to neutralize the threat, and then you can have whatever life you want. But right now, you need to be somewhere safe. And where's that? Another safe house? Another prison disguised as protection? A private medical facility? The same one where you'll deliver the baby. Top-tier security, 24-hour nursing staff, and completely off the grid. He was already moving, grabbing a bag from the closet. Pack what you need for a few days. We leave in 10 minutes. Elena wanted to argue, to assert her independence, to prove she wasn't the same woman who'd let him make all her decisions. But fear won out over pride. Fear for herself and for the baby she was responsible for protecting. She packed quickly, hands shaking as she folded clothes and gathered toiletries. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. They'd been making progress, building something new. Now it was all collapsing back into the old patterns, danger, security measures, Adrian making unilateral decisions about her safety. The drive to the facility was tense and silent. Adrian had positioned himself in the front passenger seat while two men Elena didn't recognize flanked her in the back. They were clearly security, clearly armed, and clearly prepared for violence. "Who are they?" she whispered to Adrian. "Marcus and Julian. Former military, absolutely loyal. They'll keep you safe." "How do you know? You said you walked away from the business." "I walked away from the operations. I kept certain relationships intact, the kind that matter when your family is threatened." The facility was exactly what he'd described, a discreet building that looked like an upscale office complex from the outside. Inside, it was all medical efficiency and high-tech security. A doctor met them at the entrance, a woman in her 40s with calm competence radiating from every pore. "Ms. Ward, I'm Dr. Sarah Chen. Your obstetrician forwarded your medical records. Everything looks good, but given the circumstances, I'd like to do a full examination just to be safe." "What circumstances did Adrian tell you?" "That you're experiencing high stress and need a safe environment until delivery." Dr. Chen's expression was professionally neutral. "We specialize in high-risk pregnancies and situations requiring enhanced security. You're in good hands." The room they took her to was more hotel suite than hospital room, comfortable bed, sitting area, private bathroom, and windows that looked out over a small garden. But Elena noticed the reinforced glass, the lack of external access points, the discreet camera in the corner. Another cage, just a prettier one. "Doctor." Chen's examination confirmed what Elena already knew. The baby was fine. Elena was exhausted and stressed, and she needed rest. After the doctor left, Adrian lingered in the doorway, clearly wanting to stay but respecting the boundary. "I'm sorry," he said finally. "I know this isn't what we agreed to. I know I'm making choices for you again." "You are." Elena sat on the edge of the bed, feeling the weight of everything crushing down on her. "And I hate it. I hate that we're right back where we started. We're not. Before I kept you in the dark and made decisions because I thought I knew best. This time, I'm telling you everything and making decisions because someone actively threatened to harm you." He stepped into the room, hands shoved in his pockets. "There's a difference." "Is there?" "Because from here, it feels the same." "Then tell me what you want me to do differently. Because I'm fresh out of ideas for how to keep you safe while also respecting your autonomy." Elena wanted to have an answer, but she didn't. He was right. Someone had threatened her. Someone was actively hunting her because of her connection to Adrian. Running wouldn't solve that. Neither would pretending the danger didn't exist. "I want honesty," she said finally. "Complete honesty. What are you planning to do about the Castellanos?" Adrian was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was cold in a way that reminded her exactly who he used to be. "I'm going to remind them why my family controlled this city for 3 generations. I'm going to make it very clear that touching you or our daughter means their complete and utter destruction." "You said you walked away from that life." "I did. But that doesn't mean I've forgotten how to wage war." His eyes met hers, gray and hard as winter steel. "I tried to leave peacefully, Elena. I tried to build something different, but they've made it clear that peace isn't an option, so I'll give them war instead." "And then what? You wipe out the Castellanos and someone else takes their place? Another family, another threat, another cycle of violence? Then I keep fighting until everyone understands that you and our daughter are untouchable, however long that takes." "That's not a life, Adrian. That's not what I want for her." "I know." Some of the hardness left his expression. "But right now it's what's necessary to keep you both alive. After that, we can figure out the rest." Elena pressed a hand to her belly, feeling the baby's movements. "She's going to be born into this mess, this war you're starting. No, she'll be born into safety that I created. There's a difference. He moved closer, sitting on the chair across from her. I promise you, Elena, by the time our daughter arrives, the Castellanos won't be a threat anymore. Neither will anyone else who thinks they can use you to get to me. How can you be sure? Because I'm very, very good at what I do. And when it comes to protecting the people I love, I don't fail. The certainty in his voice should have been reassuring. Instead, it terrified her, because she recognized that tone. It was the same one he'd used when describing hostile takeovers and territorial disputes, the same one that had sent her running 2 years ago. Promise me something, she said. Anything. Promise me that when this is over, you really will walk away, that you won't get pulled back into that world permanently. Adrian held her gaze for a long moment. I promise I'll do everything in my power to build the life we discussed, but I can't promise that the old world won't try to drag me back. All I can promise is that I'll fight against it, every single day. It wasn't the guarantee she'd wanted, but it was honest. And right now, honesty was all she had to hold on to. How long will I be here, she asked. 72 hours? Maybe less if we move quickly. He stood, preparing to leave. Get some rest. I'll have Mrs. Chen bring you dinner. Adrian? He turned back. Be careful. Whatever you're planning, be careful. Because she needs a father, and I... She stopped, not quite ready to finish that thought. You what? I need you to come back in one piece. Something shifted in his expression. Surprise, hope, and something deeper that made her chest tight. I will. I promise. After he left, Elena lay back on the bed and stared at the ceiling. Outside, night was falling over the city. Somewhere out there, Adrian was preparing for war, and she was trapped here, waiting and worrying and wondering if this cycle of violence would ever truly end. The baby kicked, hard and insistent, as if protesting the stress hormones flooding Elena's system. She pressed both hands to her belly, whispering apologies and promises she wasn't sure she could keep. We're going to be okay, she murmured. Your father is going to fix this, and then we're going to have the life we deserve. Safe and quiet and normal. But even as she said the words, she wondered if normal was even possible anymore. If it had ever been possible for someone like Adrian Voss. Mrs. Chen arrived an hour later with enough food for 3 people and her usual no-nonsense demeanor. She took one look at Elena's face and set the tray aside. You are worrying, she said. It wasn't a question. Someone threatened me today, threatened the baby, and Adrian is out there doing something dangerous because of it. Mr. Voss knows how to handle dangerous men. He has been doing it his whole life. That's what I'm afraid of, that he'll become those dangerous men again, that all this talk of changing was just temporary. Mrs. Chen sat on the edge of the bed, her small hand patting Elena's. You know what I think? I think you are afraid of more than just danger. I think you are afraid that you still love him. The words hit like a physical blow. Elena opened her mouth to deny it, then stopped. Because maybe Mrs. Chen was right. Maybe that was the real fear lurking beneath all the others. I can't love him, she whispered. Not after everything. Cannot stop heart from feeling what it feels. Can only choose what you do about it. Mrs. Chen stood, returning to the food tray. Now eat. Baby needs nutrients, and worrying on empty stomach helps nothing. Elena ate mechanically, tasting nothing. Her mind was with Adrian, imagining all the ways his confrontation with the Castellanos could go wrong. She'd seen the aftermath of his business dealings before. The carefully neutral news reports about bodies found in rivers, suspicious fires, unexplained disappearances. What if this time, Adrian was the one who didn't come back? The thought sent ice through her veins. She'd spent 2 years running from him, another 2 weeks learning to trust him again. The idea of losing him permanently, of their daughter growing up without a father, was unbearable. When had that happened? When had she started caring again? She was still wrestling with that question when her phone rang. An unknown number, different from the earlier threat. Don't answer, Mrs. Chen warned. But Elena's hand was already moving, some instinct overriding caution. Hello? Elena Ward? A woman's voice this time, cultured and cold. I have a message for Adrian Voss. I'm not his messenger service. No, but you are his weakness. Tell him that Maria Castellano sends her regards. Tell him we have no interest in harming you or the child, but we do require a conversation. on neutral ground, before any regrettable actions are taken. Why should I believe you? Because we're not animals, Ms. Ward. We understand the rules. Pregnant women and children are off limits. But Adrian needs to understand that his exit from the business doesn't erase past grievances. We're offering him a chance to settle accounts peacefully, for everyone's sake. And if he refuses, then we handle things the old way. And despite our rules about pregnant women, accidents do happen in war. The threat was delivered with chilling calm. The choice is his. The line went dead. Elena stared at her phone, mind racing. Should she tell Adrian? Would it make things better or worse? Maria Castellano was offering a negotiation which had to be better than outright war. But could she be trusted? Before she could decide, the door burst open and Adrian strode in, fury radiating from every line of his body. Behind him, Marcus and Julian took up positions by the door. Who called you? Adrian demanded. How did you We're monitoring your phone, every call, every text. Who was it? The old Elena would have been furious at the invasion of privacy. The new Elena, the one who just received 2 threats in one day, was grimly unsurprised. Maria Castellano. She wants to negotiate. Absolutely not. Adrian, maybe you should listen. No. He cut her off with a sharp gesture. The Castellanos don't negotiate in good faith. This is a trap. Or it's a genuine attempt to avoid bloodshed. She said pregnant women and children are off limits by their rules. She said they want to settle accounts peacefully. And you believe her? Adrian laughed bitterly. Maria Castellano is the most ruthless of their family. She's the one who ordered the hit on my father's right-hand man. She's the one who burned down a rival's business with people still inside. If she's offering peace, it's because she's planning something worse. But what if you're wrong? What if she really does want to negotiate? Then she can do it through proper channels, not by calling and threatening my pregnant wife. Ex-wife. Almost ex-wife. Elena. He crouched in front of her, taking her hands. I know you want this to end peacefully. I do too. But some people only understand strength. The Castellanos are those people. If I show up to this negotiation, they'll see it as weakness, and weakness gets you killed. So, what's your alternative? An actual war? A very short, very decisive war. By this time tomorrow, the Castellanos will either be agreeing to my terms or they'll be in no position to threaten anyone. Elena pulled her hands away. You're talking about killing them. I'm talking about neutralizing a threat to my family. That's not the same thing. In my world, it is. But it's not your world anymore. You said you walked away. You signed papers, made promises. I walked away from daily operations. I didn't walk away from protecting what's mine. His voice was hard, unyielding. This is non-negotiable, Elena. I won't risk you or our daughter on the word of someone who's killed dozens of people. She wanted to argue, to find some middle ground, but the look in his eyes told her there was no middle ground to be found. In this moment, he was every inch the Mafia boss she'd run from, calculating, ruthless, immovable. You're scaring me, she whispered. The words hit him like a slap. Some of the hardness drained from his expression. I'm sorry. I don't mean to scare you, but I mean every word. I will not let them hurt you. Even if it means becoming exactly what I ran from? Adrian was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was raw. I'd rather be the monster who keeps you safe than the reformed man who watches you die. And there it was. The fundamental truth that had always existed between them. Adrian would always choose protection over propriety, security over peace, control over freedom. It was hardwired into him, a survival mechanism he'd learned at his father's knee. Could he really change that? Or was she fooling herself, thinking he ever could? I need some time alone, Elena said. Elena, please, just go. Let me think. He stood slowly, reluctance in every movement. I'll be right outside if you need anything. After he left, Elena lay in the quiet room and felt the baby's movements slow as her own stress receded. Tomorrow, Adrian would do whatever he deemed necessary to protect them. People would probably die, and she would have to live with the knowledge that it was her presence in his life that had triggered this violence. Was this her future? Always waiting while Adrian fought battles she couldn't see? Always wondering if each goodbye might be the last? She pressed both hands to her belly, whispering to the daughter who would arrive soon into this complicated, dangerous world. I'm sorry. she murmured. "I'm so sorry your father and I can't figure out how to make this work. I'm sorry the world we're bringing you into is so broken." The baby kicked in response, a strong reminder that she was real, counting on Elena to make the right choices. But what were the right choices when every option seemed wrong? Elena closed her eyes and prayed for wisdom she didn't have, for strength she wasn't sure she possessed, for the ability to navigate impossible situations with impossible people toward some kind of peace. But mostly, she prayed that Adrian would come back alive, because despite everything, despite all the reasons she shouldn't, she still cared what happened to him. And that realization terrified her most of all. Elena woke to chaos. Sharp pain lanced through her abdomen, so intense it stole her breath. She jackknifed upright in bed, one hand clutching her belly, the other reaching instinctively for the call button. But before she could press it, another contraction hit, stronger this time, accompanied by a gush of wetness that soaked through her nightgown. Her water had broken. "No, no, no," she gasped. "Not yet. You're not due for 3 more weeks." But the baby had other plans. Another contraction seized her, and Elena heard herself cry out, a sound of pain and fear that brought nurses running. Dr. Chen was there within minutes, her calm competence a stark contrast to Elena's rising panic. "All right, Elena, let's see what's happening here." The examination confirmed what Elena already knew. "You're in active labor, 4 centimeters dilated, contractions every 3 minutes. This baby is coming tonight." "It's too early, something's wrong." 37 weeks isn't dangerously premature. Many babies are born healthy at this stage. Dr. Chen's voice was soothing but firm. "We're well equipped to handle this, but I need you to try to stay calm. Stress isn't good for you or the baby." "Where's Adrian?" Elena gasped between contractions. "Someone needs to call Adrian." "Already done. He's on his way." But 15 minutes passed, then 30, and Adrian didn't appear. Elena labored through increasingly painful contractions, her mind splitting between the physical ordeal and the terrifying question of where he was. Had something happened during his confrontation with the Castellanos? Was he hurt? Dead? The thought sent her spiraling into panic, which only made the contractions worse. Dr. Chen ordered medication to help her relax, but Elena fought against it. "I need to stay alert. I need to know what's happening." "What you need is to focus on delivering a healthy baby." Dr. Chen's tone brooked no argument. "Adrian will get here when he gets here. Right now, you need to concentrate on the work ahead of you." Another contraction hit, this one so powerful, Elena forgot about everything except breathing through it. The nurse, a kind-faced woman named Patricia, coached her through the breathing techniques she'd learned in birthing class, techniques that felt utterly inadequate now that she was actually in labor. An hour passed, then 2. Elena progressed to 7 centimeters, then 8. The pain was unlike anything she'd experienced, relentless waves that built and crested and crashed, giving her barely enough time to recover before the next one hit. And still, Adrian didn't come. "Something's wrong," Elena panted. "He would be here. He promised he'd be here." Dr. Chen exchanged a glance with Patricia that Elena couldn't read. "I'm sure he's doing everything he can to get here." "You don't understand. He's out there dealing with dangerous people. What if they hurt him? What if—" Another contraction cut off her words, this one accompanied by an overwhelming pressure that made her scream. "That's it, Elena. You're fully dilated. It's time to push." "No, not without Adrian. I can't do this without him." "Yes, you can." Dr. Chen's voice was steel wrapped in velvet. "You're strong enough to do this alone. You've been strong enough all along." The words hit something deep inside Elena. She had been doing this alone. For 2 years, she'd been surviving, adapting, making impossible choices. She'd built a life from nothing, protected herself and her unborn child through sheer determination. She didn't need Adrian to get through this. But God, she wanted him here. The pushing stage was brutal. Elena had read about it, prepared for it, thought she understood what it would be like. Nothing had prepared her for the reality, the all-consuming pressure, the burning intensity, the complete surrender of control to her body's primal process. "One more push," Dr. Chen encouraged. "I can see the head. You're almost there." Elena bore down with everything she had, and suddenly the pressure released in a rush. A thin, reedy cry filled the room, the most beautiful sound she'd ever heard. "It's a girl!" Dr. Chen announced unnecessarily, lifting the tiny, perfect baby into view. A healthy baby girl! Elena barely heard her. She was staring at her daughter, red-faced and screaming, covered in vernix and blood, absolutely perfect. The nurse placed her on Elena's chest, skin to skin, and the baby's cries quieted as she felt her mother's heartbeat. Hi, Elena whispered, tears streaming down her face. Hi, baby girl. I'm your mom. I've been waiting so long to meet you. The baby opened her eyes, dark blue, like all newborns, but Elena could see hints of gray already. Adrian's eyes. She had a shock of dark hair and tiny, perfect fingers that wrapped around Elena's thumb with surprising strength. What's her name? Patricia asked gently. Elena had been avoiding thinking about names, afraid to jinx anything by planning too far ahead. But now, looking down at her daughter, one name rose above all others. Sophia, she said softly. Sophia Grace. It meant wisdom and blessing, two things Elena desperately hoped her daughter would have in abundance. The medical team took Sophia briefly to clean her up and perform newborn assessments. Elena watched anxiously as they weighed and measured her, checking reflexes and breathing. But Sophia passed every test with flying colors, 6 pounds, 4 ounces of healthy baby girl. When they returned Sophia to Elena's arms, wrapped in a soft pink blanket, the reality of what had just happened crashed over her. She was a mother. This tiny person was completely dependent on her for everything. The responsibility was staggering, and she was still alone. Dr. Chen must have read her expression. I've sent word to Adrian again. I'm sure he'll be here soon. But another hour passed with no sign of him. Elena tried to nurse Sophia, fumbling through the process with Patricia's patient guidance. The baby latched on after several attempts, and Elena felt the strange tug and pull of her daughter feeding. She's a natural, Patricia said. Good, strong suck reflex. Elena stroked Sophia's downy hair, marveling at the perfection of her tiny ears, the delicate curve of her cheek. Where's your daddy? She whispered. Where is he, little one? As if in answer, the door burst open. Adrian stood in the doorway, and Elena's heart stopped. He was a mess, his shirt torn and bloody, a cut above his eyebrow still seeping, bruises already forming on his jaw. But he was alive. He was here. Elena. Her name came out choked. His eyes found the baby in her arms, and something in his expression shattered. Are you both? We're fine. We're both fine. Elena couldn't stop the tears. Where were you? Adrian crossed the room in 3 long strides, then stopped short, as if afraid to come closer. There were complications. The Castellanos weren't alone. There was an ambush. I'm sorry, Elena. I tried to get here sooner. Are you hurt? Nothing that matters. His eyes were locked on Sophia, drinking in every detail. May I hold her? Elena's first instinct was to refuse, to punish him for missing the birth. But then she saw the naked longing on his face, the way his hands trembled as he reached out, and she couldn't do it. Wash your hands first, and take off that bloody shirt. Adrian moved to the sink, scrubbing methodically while never taking his eyes off the baby. He stripped off the ruined shirt, revealing more bruises across his ribs. Patricia made a disapproving sound and fetched antiseptic for his cuts. You should be examined, she said. Later, please. Adrian held out his arms, and Elena carefully transferred Sophia to him. The transformation was instant and total. Adrian's entire body changed, softening, opening, becoming something Elena had never seen before. He cradled Sophia with infinite gentleness, supporting her head with practiced care that surprised Elena. Hello, little one, he whispered. I'm your father. And I'm sorry I wasn't here when you were born. That's the first promise I've broken to you, but I swear it'll be the last. Sophia made a small sound, and Adrian's face lit up with wonder. She's so small, so perfect. 6 pounds, 4 ounces, Elena said. Born at 11:47 p.m. What's her name? Sophia. Sophia Grace. Adrian's eyes met Elena's, and she saw tears threatening to spill. That's beautiful. It's perfect. He moved to the chair beside Elena's bed, never taking his eyes off their daughter. Sophia stared up at him with that unfocused newborn gaze, and Adrian traced one finger down her tiny nose. I was so scared, he admitted. When I got the message that you'd gone into labor, I tried to leave immediately. But the Castellanos chose that moment to spring their trap. They knew somehow. They knew about the baby. Elena's blood ran cold. What happened? Nothing you need to worry about now. But his jaw tightened, and Elena saw the fury banked behind his eyes. They won't be a problem anymore. I made sure of that. Adrian, what did you do? What I had to. What I promised I would do to keep you both safe. He looked up from Sofia, and Elena saw a hardness there that made her stomach clench. The Castellanos thought they could use tonight as leverage. They thought having me distracted would give them an advantage. They were wrong. Tell me you didn't kill anyone. Adrian was silent for a long moment. I can't tell you that. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with implications. Elena wanted to be horrified, wanted to condemn him for the violence. But looking at him holding their daughter with such tender care, she couldn't find the words. How many? She asked instead. Does it matter? Yes, it matters to me. Adrian sighed, the sound bone-deep weary. 3. Maria Castellano and 2 of her lieutenants. The rest agreed to very favorable terms regarding their future behavior. You killed Maria Castellano. I killed the woman who threatened my family, who planned to use my daughter's birth as an opportunity to attack when I was vulnerable. His voice was flat, emotionless. I do it again, without hesitation. Elena should have been repulsed, should have demanded he leave, should have called security, should have protected Sofia from the man who just admitted to murder. But all she felt was a complicated tangle of relief and guilt and exhaustion. This isn't over, is it? She asked quietly. There will always be someone else. Another threat, another family, another reason for violence. Not anymore. I made an example tonight, a very clear, very brutal example of what happens to anyone who threatens what's mine. He looked down at Sofia, his expression softening again. I'm done with half measures, Elena. Done trying to walk away while leaving loose ends. Tonight, I burned every bridge. There's no going back to that life now. Because you murdered someone. Because I made it clear that Adrian Voss is no longer playing by the old rules. That anyone who comes after my family will face total destruction. Not negotiation. Not compromise. Destruction. The words should have terrified her. Instead, Elena felt a strange sense of finality. This was who Adrian was. Not the man trying to reform, not the businessman walking away from violence, but someone who would do anything to protect the people he loved, even if it meant damning himself in the process. What happens now? She asked. Now I hold my daughter and thank whatever higher power exists that you're both alive and healthy. Adrian's voice cracked slightly. I thought I'd lost everything tonight. Thought I'd have to live with missing her birth, with you hating me for not being here. This right now is more than I deserve. Elena reached out, her hand covering his where it rested on Sofia's chest. You're here now. That's what matters. I'll never miss another important moment. I swear to you, Elena, whatever else happens, I'll be there for her, for both of you. Even if I don't want you there? The question made him flinch, but he didn't look away. Even then, you can hate me, refuse to see me, cut me out of your life completely. But I will always be there for Sofia. That's not negotiable. Before Elena could respond, Sofia began to fuss, her tiny face scrunching up in displeasure. Adrian immediately shifted, trying to soothe her, but the baby's cries only intensified. She's probably hungry again, Patricia said, materializing with perfect timing. Want me to take her so you can rest? Or would you like to try nursing again? Elena held out her arms, and Adrian transferred Sofia back with obvious reluctance. The baby latched on immediately, and blessed quiet returned. I should let you rest, Adrian said, but he didn't move from the chair. Stay. The word escaped before Elena could stop it. Just for a little while. Relief flooded his face. Okay. They sat in silence while Sofia nursed, the only sounds her small, gulping noises and the quiet beep of medical equipment. Elena studied Adrian's face in the dim light, seeing the exhaustion carved into every line, the weight of what he'd done tonight settling on his shoulders. Does it bother you? She asked. What you did tonight? Killing them? Adrian considered the question. No. They made their choice when they threatened you. I made mine. I don't regret protecting my family. That's not what I asked. I asked if it bothers you. He was quiet for a long time. It bothers me that I had to make that choice, that the world we live in forced me to choose between being the man you need and being the monster who keeps you safe. But the act itself? No, I'd do it 1,000 times over. You realize that makes you sound like a sociopath. Maybe I am one. My father certainly was. Adrian's smile was bitter. The only difference is I know what I am. I don't pretend otherwise. That's not true. You were trying to change. You were trying to be different. And look how that turned out. The moment I let my guard down, the moment I tried to be better, someone tried to exploit it. This is the world I was born into, Elena. This is the reality we can't escape. So what? We just accept it? Raise our daughter surrounded by violence and fear? No. We raise her protected by someone who understands violence and refuses to let it touch her. Adrian reached out, stroking Sophia's cheek with one finger. I'll be the monster so she never has to be. I'll make the hard choices so she can have soft ones. That's the only way I know how to be a father. Elena felt tears burning again. That's not fair to you, or to her. Life isn't fair. You taught me that when you left. When you chose to struggle alone rather than accept the protection I could provide. He met her eyes. But you were right, about so many things. I was controlling. I was suffocating you. I became my father when I swore I never would. And now? Now I'm trying to find a middle ground. Be the protector without being the jailer. Give you both safety without stealing your freedom. His laugh was hollow. I'm not sure it's possible, but I'm going to try. Sophia had fallen asleep at Elena's breast, milk-drunk and peaceful. Elena adjusted her gently, burping her with Patricia's guidance before settling her in the bassinet beside the bed. You should sleep, Adrian said. You just went through labor. You need rest. So do you. When's the last time you slept? Doesn't matter. Adrian, he sighed. 2 days ago. Maybe. It's been a busy week. There's a recliner in the corner. At least lie down for a few hours. I'm fine right here. You're covered in blood and bruises, and you look like you're about to collapse. Please. For me, if not for yourself. Adrian studied her face, then nodded slowly. He moved to the recliner, wincing as his bruised ribs protested. Within minutes, his breathing had evened out into sleep. Elena watched him for a long moment. This complicated man who'd killed for her tonight, who'd rushed to be here despite his injuries, who loved their daughter with a fierceness that was both beautiful and terrifying. She didn't know what their future held. Didn't know if they could make this co-parenting arrangement work, or if Adrian's world would always pull them back into darkness. But looking at Sophia sleeping peacefully in her bassinet, and Adrian finally at rest in the chair, Elena felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Maybe they couldn't change the past. Maybe they couldn't erase the violence and mistakes and broken promises, but they could choose how to move forward. They could choose to be better, even if better was imperfect and messy and complicated. Elena drifted off to sleep with that thought, and for the first time in 2 years, she didn't dream of running. Morning came too soon. Elena woke to Sophia's hungry cries and the sight of Adrian already at the bassinet, lifting their daughter with practiced ease. How long have you been awake? Elena asked, struggling to sit up. An hour or so. I've been watching her sleep. He brought Sophia to Elena, settling back into the chair. She's so perfect, Elena. I keep expecting to wake up and find out this is all a dream. If it is, we're having the same dream. Elena positioned Sophia to nurse, marveling again at the tiny miracle they'd created. Did you mean what you said last night about being there for her? Every word. Even though it means giving up the life you knew? Especially because of that. Adrian leaned forward, elbows on his knees. I've been thinking about what you said, about Sophia being born into violence. You're right. I can't protect her from a world I helped create, but I can dismantle that world piece by piece. How? I still have leverage, still have connections. I can use them to broker peace between the families, establish new rules that protect civilians and children, make it clear that the old ways are ending. And they'll just accept that? Some will, others won't. But after last night, everyone knows what happens to people who don't accept it. His jaw tightened. I'm not proud of the message I sent, but it was necessary. Elena wanted to argue, to tell him there had to be another way. But she was too tired, and the reality was he was probably right. In his world, violence was the only language everyone understood. "What about us?" she asked instead. "Where do we go from here?" Adrian was quiet for a long moment. "That's up to you. I meant what I said about the apartment, about giving you independence. That offer still stands, or—" he hesitated. "Or we could try something different." "Different how?" "Live together. Not as husband and wife, just as co-parents. Separate rooms, clear boundaries, but under the same roof. So Sophia has both parents present." Elena's first instinct was to refuse. Living with Adrian again, even platonically, felt like asking for trouble. But looking down at Sophia, she had to admit the idea had merit. Children thrived with stability, with both parents involved. And despite everything, Adrian had proven he was trying to change. "I need time to think about it," she said. "Take all the time you need. The offer doesn't expire." Dr. Chen arrived then for morning rounds, examining both Elena and Sophia with thorough care. "Everything looks good. You're recovering well, and Sophia is thriving. I'd like to keep you both one more night for observation, but barring any complications, you should be able to go home tomorrow." Home. The word hung in the air, loaded with questions neither Elena nor Adrian had answers for yet. After Dr. Chen left, Mrs. Chen arrived with enough food to feed a small army and her usual forthright observations. "The baby is beautiful. Has your eyes, Elena, but Mr. Voss's stubborn chin." "How can you tell she's stubborn? She's less than 12 hours old." "I can tell." Mrs. Chen began unpacking containers. "You both look terrible. When did you last eat real food?" Neither of them had a good answer to that. Mrs. Chen made disapproving noises and bullied them both into eating while she took her turn holding Sophia, cooing to the baby in Mandarin. Throughout the day, a steady stream of visitors arrived. Jennifer Brennan came with updated custody paperwork that reflected Sophia's birth, her professional demeanor softening when she held the baby. Marcus and Julian appeared briefly, bringing flowers and looking supremely uncomfortable around the newborn. Even Patricia came by during her break, just to check on her baby. But the visitor who surprised Elena most was a woman she'd never met before, tall and elegant with silver-threaded hair and eyes that reminded her of Adrian's. "I'm Catherine Voss," the woman said, "Adrian's mother, and I believe this is my granddaughter." Elena looked at Adrian, who'd gone pale. "I thought you said your mother lived in Europe." "She does. I didn't think she'd come." "Of course I came." Catherine moved to the bassinet, looking down at Sophia with an expression of pure wonder. "My only grandchild. Did you really think I'd miss meeting her?" She lifted Sophia with the ease of experience, cradling the baby against her shoulder. "Hello, little one. I'm your grandmother. And you, my dear, are the best thing to happen to this family in generations." Elena watched the interplay between Adrian and his mother with fascination. There was tension there, old hurts barely scabbed over. But there was also love, complicated and messy, but undeniable. "How long are you staying?" Adrian asked. "As long as I'm needed. I have nothing pressing in Geneva." Catherine sat in the chair, never taking her eyes off Sophia. "You've made quite a mess of things, Adrian, but this little one is perfect, so perhaps there's hope for you yet." "Mother." "Don't mother me. You know I'm right." She looked up at Elena. "How are you feeling, dear?" "Tired, sore, confused." "All normal for a new mother, especially one whose child's father has been causing international incidents." Catherine's tone was dry. "I assume you've heard about the Castellano situation?" "Some of it." "Well, he handled it poorly. Too much violence, too public. But the results are solid. No one will threaten you or the baby now." Elena blinked at the casual assessment of murder. "Does that not bother you?" "My dear, I was married to Vincent Voss for 35 years. I learned long ago to focus on outcomes rather than methods. Adrian kept you safe. That's what matters." It was a chilling perspective, but Elena was beginning to understand that this was how Adrian's family operated. Violence was just another tool, to be evaluated on effectiveness rather than morality. "I'm not sure I can live in that world," Elena admitted. "Then don't. But don't expect Adrian to stop protecting you just because you find his methods distasteful." Catherine looked at her son. That's always been your problem, Adrian. You apologize for being what you are instead of owning it. Be a monster if that's what keeps your family safe. But don't pretend to be anything else. Mother, that's not helpful. It's honest, and honesty is what you two need right now. She stood, returning Sophia to Elena's arms. I'm staying at the Meridian. Call me when you're ready for a real conversation about the future. After she left, Elena and Adrian sat in stunned silence. Your mother is terrifying, Elena said finally. I know. But she loves you, and Sophia. I know that too. Adrian scrubbed his hands over his face. I'm sorry. I should have warned you she might come. I just didn't think. It's fine, actually, it's good. Sophia should know her grandmother. Elena paused. She's right about one thing, though. We do need to have a real conversation about the future. Okay, what do you want to talk about? Elena looked down at their daughter, sleeping peacefully despite the chaos surrounding her birth. I want to talk about whether we can really make this work. Co-parenting, staying in each other's lives, raising her together without destroying each other in the process. I think we can, if we're both committed to trying. Even though I'll never be comfortable with your methods, even though there will always be a part of me that's afraid of what you're capable of, even then, Adrian moved closer, kneeling beside the bed so they were at eye level. I'm not asking you to approve of everything I do, Elena. I'm asking you to trust that everything I do is to protect you and Sophia. Can you do that? Elena searched his face, looking for the lie, the manipulation. But all she saw was sincerity and hope and love so fierce it almost hurt to witness. I can try, she said finally. That's all I can promise. I can try. That's enough. That's more than enough. Sophia stirred between them, making small, sleepy sounds. Together, Elena and Adrian watched their daughter, this tiny person who'd already changed everything. Whatever came next, whatever challenges they faced, they'd face them together. Not as husband and wife, maybe not even as friends yet, but as parents united in their determination to give Sophia the life she deserved. And somehow, Elena thought, that might be enough. It might be exactly what they needed to heal the wounds between them and build something new from the ashes of what they'd lost. Hope, she was learning, didn't require certainty. It just required the willingness to try. And for the first time in years, Elena was willing to try. The discharge from the medical facility came the next afternoon, and with it, a decision Elena had been avoiding. Adrian stood in the doorway of her room, a car seat in one hand and hope written across his face. The apartment is ready, he said. The one with the yellow nursery. Or if you'd prefer, the penthouse has everything you and Sophia need. Your choice. Elena looked down at their daughter, bundled in a soft pink going-home outfit that Mrs. Chen had brought, 24 hours old and already the center of an impossible decision. I need you to be honest with me, Elena said. Completely honest. Is it really over? The threat from the Castellanos? The danger? Adrian set down the car seat and moved closer, his expression grave. The Castellano family is no longer an issue, but I can't promise there won't be other threats in the future. Men like me make enemies. Some of them hold grudges for decades. That's not reassuring. It's honest. He sat on the edge of the bed. I could lie and tell you everything's perfect now, that we'll ride off into the sunset and live happily ever after. But you deserve the truth. My past will always cast shadows. The question is whether we face those shadows together or separately. Elena had spent the night wrestling with that exact question. Living separately meant independence, meant maintaining clear boundaries, meant protecting herself from falling back into old patterns. But it also meant splitting Sophia's time between two homes, meant coordinating schedules and missing moments, meant raising their daughter in the fractured way Elena had sworn she'd never do. If I agree to stay at the penthouse, she said slowly, it's temporary, a trial period, and we set ground rules. Relief flooded Adrian's face, but he kept his voice measured. Whatever you need. Separate bedrooms, no romantic relationship, we're co-parents, nothing more. Agreed. I make my own decisions. About my life, about Sophia's daily routine, about everything that doesn't directly impact her safety. You don't get to override me just because you think you know better. Agreed. And if I ever feel like you're slipping back into controlling behavior, I walk. No arguments, no guilt trips, no making me feel like I'm abandoning you." Adrian's jaw tightened, but he nodded. "Agreed. Anything else?" "Yeah, you go to therapy. Real therapy, with someone who specializes in trauma and violence. Because I need to know you're working on yourself, not just putting on a show for me." The request clearly caught him off guard. "Therapy? Your mother was right. You apologize for being what you are instead of dealing with why you became it. That's not healthy for you, and it's not sustainable for us." Elena met his eyes. "I'm serious about this, Adrian. If we're going to make this work, you need to face your demons, not just suppress them." He was quiet for a long moment, and Elena could see the internal struggle playing across his features. Adrian Voss, admitting he needed help, seeking therapy like a normal person, it went against everything he'd been taught, everything his father had drilled into him about strength and weakness. "Okay," he said finally. "I'll do it. For Sophia. And for you." "Do it for yourself," Elena corrected. "That's the only way it'll actually work." They settled Sophia into the car seat with fumbling, first-time parent clumsiness that would have been funny if it wasn't so terrifying. The tiny baby looked impossibly small in the safety harness, her face scrunched up in displeasure at being confined. "We're going to drop her," Adrian muttered, triple-checking the straps. "We're not going to drop her. She's so fragile. What if we mess this up?" Elena felt a laugh bubble up despite her exhaustion. "We're definitely going to mess it up. That's parenthood. We just have to hope we don't mess it up too badly." The drive to the penthouse was nerve-wracking. Adrian drove with exaggerated caution, treating every pothole like a personal threat to Sophia's well-being. Elena sat in the back beside the car seat, one hand resting on Sophia's chest to monitor her breathing, convinced something would go wrong in the 15-minute journey. But they arrived safely, and Elena had to admit that Adrian had thought of everything. The guest room had been transformed into a proper nursery, the crib from the apartment relocated here, along with a changing table, rocking chair, and every possible baby necessity arranged with military precision. "Mrs. Chen helped," Adrian admitted. "I had no idea what half this stuff was for." "Neither do I," Elena confessed, looking at the bottle warmer and diaper genie with trepidation. "I've read all the books, but seeing it in person is different." Catherine Voss appeared that evening, taking control with the confidence of someone who'd done this before. She showed Elena different swaddling techniques, talked her through the mysteries of newborn feeding schedules, and took Sophia for an hour so Elena could shower and sleep. "You're doing fine," Catherine said when Elena emerged, looking marginally more human. "Being terrified means you're taking it seriously. It's the overconfident parents you have to worry about." Over the next few days, a rhythm emerged. Sophia woke every 2 to 3 hours to eat, which meant Elena was operating on fragmented sleep and caffeine. Adrian hovered anxiously, wanting to help but unsure how when Elena was breastfeeding. Mrs. Chen appeared daily with food and practical wisdom. Catherine stopped by frequently, offering the kind of experienced guidance that Elena's own mother, gone for 10 years now, couldn't provide. It was exhausting and overwhelming, and nothing like Elena had imagined. But it was also shot through with moments of unexpected joy. Sophia's first real bath, when her eyes went wide with surprise at the warm water. The night she slept for 4 consecutive hours, and Elena woke in a panic, certain something was wrong. Adrian's face the first time Sophia gripped his finger and wouldn't let go. 2 weeks into their new arrangement, Elena found Adrian in the nursery at 3 a.m, holding Sophia and talking to her in low tones. "Your mom is the strongest person I've ever met," he was saying. "She ran from me because she knew I was becoming someone dangerous. She survived alone for 2 years because she refused to compromise her values. And now she's giving me a chance I absolutely don't deserve." He pressed a kiss to Sophia's downy head. "You're lucky, little one. You got the best parts of both of us. My determination, her heart. My strength, her wisdom. You're going to be extraordinary." Elena's throat tightened. She started to back away, to give them privacy, but Adrian looked up and saw her. "I didn't hear you," he said. "She was fussing. I came to check on her." "She's fine, just wanted company, I think." He stood, transferring Sophia to Elena's arms. "I should let you handle the feeding." "Adrian, wait." Elena settled into the rocking chair, positioning Sophia to nurse. What you said just now about me being strong, you really believe that? Every word. He leaned against the doorframe. I spent our marriage treating you like something fragile that needed protecting, but you were never fragile. You were just trapped. The moment you got free, you proved exactly how strong you are. I didn't feel strong. I felt terrified most of the time. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's acting despite it. He smiled slightly. Someone very wise told me that once. I think it was you, actually. Elena remembered saying something similar during one of their early arguments about his business. That was a long time ago. Doesn't make it less true. Adrian was quiet for a moment. I started therapy, found a doctor who specializes in trauma and violent behavior. Had my first session yesterday. How did it go? Terrible. She asked me about my father and I nearly walked out. He ran a hand through his hair. But I went back today. Figured if I'm asking you to trust me, the least I can do is trust the process. That's good, Adrian. Really good. We'll see. She says I have a lot of work to do. Something about learned patterns of control and unprocessed grief. He shook his head. But I'm committed to changing, to being better, to being the father Sophia deserves. Over the following weeks, Elena watched Adrian transform in small, incremental ways. He started asking instead of assuming. When Sophia developed a diaper rash, he consulted Elena before calling 3 different pediatricians. When his mother suggested hiring a night nurse, he presented it as an option rather than a decision. The therapy was clearly doing something. Adrian was more open about his struggles, more willing to admit when he didn't have answers. He talked about his childhood, the violence he'd witnessed, the impossible standards his father had set, the way love had always been conditional on strength. I thought if I was hard enough, strong enough, ruthless enough, I could protect everyone I cared about, he told Elena one evening. They were in the living room, taking advantage of Sophia's rare long nap. But all I did was drive away the only person who actually cared about me. I cared about the man you were, Elena corrected. The one who took me to art galleries and argued about wine. That version of you was worth loving. And now? Elena considered the question honestly. Now you're somewhere in between, still learning who you want to be, but at least you're trying. That counts for something. Is it enough for you to maybe eventually trust me again? The vulnerability in his voice made her chest ache. I'm getting there slowly. But Adrian, trust isn't something you can force or rush. It has to be earned over time. I know, He stopped, seeming to search for words. I miss you. Not just having you here physically, but really being with you, talking late into the night, making you laugh, all of it. We can't go back to what we were. I know, but maybe we could build something new, something better. Elena wanted to say yes. Wanted to give in to the pull she felt toward him, stronger now than it had been in years. But caution held her back. Ask me again in 6 months, she said. When we've had time to prove this co-parenting thing works. When you've made more progress in therapy. When I'm sure this isn't just new parent bonding hormones talking. Adrian looked disappointed but nodded. 6 months. I can wait 6 months. The incident that changed everything came 5 weeks after Sophia's birth. Elena woke at 2 a.m. to an empty apartment. No crying baby, no sounds at all. Heart pounding, she raced to the nursery. Sophia's crib was empty. Panic seized Elena's throat. She ran through the penthouse, calling Adrian's name, checking every room with increasing hysteria. Finally, she found them on the terrace. Adrian sat in one of the outdoor chairs, Sophia cradled against his bare chest, skin to skin the way the nurses had taught them. He was humming something soft and wordless, and Sophia was completely peaceful, one tiny hand curled against his collarbone. She wouldn't settle, Adrian said quietly when he noticed Elena. I tried everything, rocking, singing, the white noise machine, finally remembered reading something about skin-to-skin contact helping with fussy babies. So I tried it. Elena's panic drained away, replaced by something more complicated. You should have woken me. You were exhausted. I figured I could handle one fussy baby for an hour or two. He smiled down at Sophia. We've been out here talking about the stars. I think she likes astronomy. She's 5 weeks old. She can barely focus past 12 inches. doesn't mean she can't appreciate the concept. Adrian's expression was so tender, so full of wonder, that Elena felt something crack open in her chest. This was what she'd wanted all along. Not the powerful mafia boss or the ruthless businessman, just a man who loved their daughter enough to sit on a terrace at 2 in the morning, skin to skin, talking about stars. "Can I join you?" she asked. "Always." Elena settled into the chair beside his, and they sat in comfortable silence, watching Sophia sleep and listening to the distant sounds of the city below. The night air was cool but not cold, and the sky was surprisingly clear for the city. "I've been thinking about your offer," Adrian said eventually. "The 6-month timeline. And I want to do it right, not rush, not push. I want to earn my way back into your life, if you'll let me." He glanced at her. "So I'm making you a promise. For the next 6 months, I'm going to focus on being the best father and co-parent I can be. No romantic pressure, no trying to win you back, just proving that I can be trusted. What happens after 6 months? After 6 months, I ask you on a date. A real one, like before everything got complicated. And you can say yes or no, and either way, I'll respect your answer." Elena felt tears prickling. "You're really serious about this. I've never been more serious about anything in my life." He reached over with his free hand and Elena took it. "I love you, Elena. I never stopped. But I understand that love isn't enough by itself. It has to be backed up with action, with change, with proving I'm worthy of you. You don't have to be worthy of me. You just have to be honest and present and willing to keep growing. Then that's what I'll be." Sophia stirred between them, making small sleep sounds. Together, Elena and Adrian watched their daughter, this perfect tiny person who'd brought them back together and forced them both to become better versions of themselves. The next months unfolded with surprising smoothness. Adrian kept his promise, focusing on being present without being overbearing. He attended every pediatrician appointment, changed diapers without complaint, and walked the floors with Sophia during her fussy evenings. His therapy sessions continued, and Elena could see the changes, the way he paused before making decisions, the way he asked for her input instead of assuming he knew best. Elena found herself relaxing into the routine, trusting Adrian in ways she hadn't thought possible. When Sophia developed a fever and they spent a terrified night in the emergency room, Adrian held Elena together while she fell apart. When Elena's maternity leave from the diner ended and she struggled with the decision to return to work, Adrian listened without trying to solve the problem for her. "Whatever you choose, we'll make it work," he said. "If you want to go back to work, great. If you want to stay home with Sophia, great. If you want to do something completely different, also great. This is your choice, Elena." She ended up going back to the diner part-time, more for the adult interaction than the money. Adrian had set up a trust fund for Sophia that would cover her needs, and while Elena maintained her own bank account and independence, she had to admit that not worrying about every dollar made life significantly easier. Catherine became a regular presence in their lives, stopping by several times a week to spoil her granddaughter and offer arch commentary on Adrian's progress. "You're doing better," she told him one afternoon. "Not perfect, but better. Your father would be appalled, which means you're probably on the right track." "Thanks, Mother. Your approval means everything." "Don't be sarcastic, dear. It's unbecoming." But she smiled as she said it, and Adrian smiled back, and Elena saw the healing happening between them too. Mrs. Chen had basically moved in, claiming the second guest room and declaring herself essential household staff. Elena had stopped arguing, mainly because Mrs. Chen's cooking and practical wisdom had become indispensable. Plus, Sophia clearly adored her, lighting up whenever Mrs. Chen appeared. 5 months into their arrangement, Elena woke one morning and realized something had shifted. She wasn't just co-parenting with Adrian anymore. She was enjoying his company. Looking forward to their late-night conversations after Sophia went to sleep, noticing the way his eyes crinkled when he laughed, feeling her heart rate pick up when he walked into a room. She was falling for him again. Or maybe she'd never really fallen out of love. Maybe she'd just buried it under hurt and fear and self-protection. The realization terrified her. "You're thinking too loud," Adrian said from across the breakfast table. Sophia was in her bouncy seat between them, gumming a teething ring with serious concentration. "Sorry, just processing." "Want to talk about it?" Elena looked at him, really looked, He was different than the man she'd married, softer in some ways, harder in others, more honest about his struggles, more present in his life instead of always operating 3 steps ahead. "One more month," she said. "What?" "Until your 6 months are up. Until you ask me on that date." Understanding dawned in his eyes, followed by hope so bright it almost hurt to witness. "You're counting down." "Maybe." "Elena Ward, are you saying there's a chance you might say yes?" "I'm saying ask me in a month and find out." She couldn't quite suppress her smile. "But you should probably start planning. If you're going to court me properly, you'll need to up your game from our first date. I took you to the best restaurant in the city. You took me to the most expensive restaurant in the city. There's a difference." "Noted. So what would properly courting you look like?" Elena thought about it. "Somewhere that means something. Not just impressive, but meaningful. Show me you've been paying attention to who I am now, not who I used to be." Challenge accepted. The last month crawled by with agonizing slowness. Sophia continued to grow, hitting every milestone right on schedule. She started sleeping longer stretches at night, which felt like a miracle. She smiled at everything, but especially at Adrian, who made ridiculous faces to earn each one. Adrian threw himself into planning the perfect date with the same intensity he'd once brought to business deals. Elena caught him having whispered phone conversations and making mysterious notes. It should have worried her, this evidence of his controlling tendencies. But somehow, it didn't. This was different. He was planning something for her, not deciding something for her. The night before the 6-month deadline, they sat on the terrace again, the same spot where Adrian had promised to prove himself. Sophia was asleep inside, monitored by both baby camera and Mrs. Chen's eagle eyes. "Nervous about tomorrow?" Elena asked. "Terrified," Adrian admitted. "What if I get it wrong? What if you say no? Then we keep co-parenting like we have been. The world doesn't end just because I'm not ready for romance. But would you ever be ready? Or would I just be waiting indefinitely for something that's never going to happen?" Elena turned to face him. "I can't promise you anything, Adrian. I can't guarantee that I'll ever fully trust you the way I did before. Too much has happened. Too much hurt has passed between us. I know. But I can tell you that I want to try. That I've seen you changing, growing, becoming someone I could maybe build a future with." She reached for his hand. "So ask me your question, and I'll give you an honest answer." Adrian took a breath, and Elena saw vulnerability and hope and fear all warring across his features. "Elena Ward, would you do me the honor of going on a date with me? No pressure, no expectations, just 2 people seeing if they can build something real together?" "Yes," Elena said, and watched joy transform his face. "Yes, I'll go on a date with you." He pulled her close, and for the first time in years, Elena let herself sink into his embrace without reservation. They sat like that for a long time, holding each other under the stars, while their daughter slept peacefully inside. The date turned out to be perfect in its simplicity. Adrian took her to a small art gallery in a neighborhood she'd mentioned loving back when they first met. Not the prestigious museums he used to frequent, but a local space showcasing emerging artists. Afterward, they walked through the park where Elena used to take Sophia, talking about everything and nothing. "I've been thinking about the future," Adrian said as they sat on a bench watching the sunset. "About what comes next. And I want to start a foundation, using my resources, the legitimate ones, to help families like the ones my father's business destroyed. Job training, education programs, support for people trying to get out of that life." Elena stared at him. "You're serious?" "Completely. I can't undo the damage my family caused, but maybe I can help prevent future damage. Give people options my father never allowed them to have." He turned to her. "I was hoping you might help me. You understand what it's like to start over with nothing. You'd know what kind of support actually helps." "Adrian, that's amazing. Is that a yes?" "That's a very enthusiastic yes." He smiled, the genuine smile she remembered from their early days. "There's something else. I found a house. Outside the city, about an hour north. It's near good schools, has a yard for Sophia to play in, and it's far enough from my old life that we could actually be normal. You want to leave the city? I want to give our daughter the childhood I never had. Trees to climb, neighbors who aren't criminals, a place where violence is something that happens on TV instead of in the next room. He pulled out his phone, showing her pictures. It needs work, but it has good bones. And I was thinking, if you agreed to move there with me, really be a family, we could fix it up together, make it ours. The house in the photos was beautiful in an understated way. White clapboard siding, a wraparound porch, windows that promised light and air. It looked like the kind of place where children played in the yard and families had barbecues. Normal. Safe. Everything Elena had wanted. This is a lot to process, she said. I know, and there's no pressure. We can keep doing what we're doing for as long as you need. But I wanted you to know that I'm serious about building a real future. Not the life my father envisioned, but something better. Something worth fighting for. Elena looked at the pictures, then at Adrian, then back at the pictures. 6 months ago, she would have said no automatically. Would have seen this as another attempt to control her, to lock her away in a different kind of cage. But that wasn't what this was. This was Adrian offering her the normal life she'd always craved, the safe space to raise their daughter. And he was asking, not deciding, presenting options instead of dictating terms. Can we go see it, she asked, before I make any decisions? Whenever you want. Tomorrow, if you're free. They went the next day, bringing Sophia along for the adventure. The house was even better in person, larger than the photos suggested, with a finished basement and an attic that could be converted to office space. The yard was overgrown but full of potential, with old trees perfect for climbing and a flat area that would be ideal for a swing set. The previous owners had 3 kids, the real estate agent explained. You can see where they marked their heights on the kitchen door frame. Elena traced the pencil marks, imagining Sophia standing here in a few years, eager to see how much she'd grown. Imagining more children maybe, siblings for Sophia. A normal, chaotic, beautiful family life. What do you think? Adrian asked when they had a moment alone on the porch. I think it's perfect. I think it's everything I didn't know I needed. She turned to him. But I need to know this is what you really want, not just what you think I want. Are you ready to give up the city completely? All the connections and power and influence? I gave those up 6 months ago when I walked away from the business. This is just making it official. He took her hand. I don't want that life anymore, Elena. I want this. You, Sophia, maybe more kids eventually. Coaching soccer teams and arguing about whose turn it is to mow the lawn. Normal problems instead of life or death situations. What about the foundation? You can't run that from up here. I'll hire people I trust to handle the day-to-day operations. I can still oversee everything, just remotely. The beauty of legitimate business is you don't have to manage everything personally. Elena looked out at the yard, imagining their future here. It was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. A complete reinvention of everything she'd known. I want to say yes, she admitted. But I'm scared. What if we move out here and you regret it? What if you get bored with normal life and start craving the excitement of your old world? Then I'll deal with it in therapy and find healthier ways to channel that energy. Maybe take up extreme sports or something. He smiled. But honestly, Elena, I've had enough excitement to last a lifetime. I'm ready for boring, for safe, for watching our daughter grow up without wondering which enemy is going to try to hurt us. Sophia chose that moment to start fussing, hungry and ready for a feeding. Elena lifted her from the car seat, and Adrian wrapped his arms around both of them. Standing there on the porch of a house that could be theirs, Elena felt something settle in her chest, a sense of rightness, of coming home. Let's do it, she said. Let's buy the house and move here and try to be a normal family. The joy on Adrian's face was worth every risk she was taking. The next 2 months were a whirlwind of activity. They put an offer on the house, and it was accepted. Adrian started the process of setting up the foundation, recruiting people Elena actually approved of to run it. They began couples therapy, working through their issues with a professional mediator who didn't let either of them get away with avoiding difficult topics. You both have trauma, their therapist said during one particularly intense session. Elena from feeling controlled and suffocated. Adrian from learning that love equals dominance. Until you both acknowledge and process those traumas, you'll keep falling into old patterns. It was hard work, harder than Elena had anticipated. There were sessions where she left crying, overwhelmed by the emotions they'd dredged up. Sessions where Adrian had to excuse himself, too raw to continue. But they kept showing up, kept doing the work, kept choosing each other even when it was difficult. Sophia continued to be the light in the middle of their reconstruction. She started laughing, full belly laughs that made both her parents melt. She rolled over for the first time, then immediately started trying to crawl. She was curious and fearless and absolutely perfect. "She's going to be trouble," Mrs. Chen predicted. "Too smart for her own good." "Takes after her mother," Adrian said, grinning when Elena swatted his arm. They moved into the house on a crisp October morning, Sophia bundled against the autumn chill. Catherine came to help, along with Mrs. Chen and a small army of movers Adrian had hired. By evening, the chaos had resolved into something resembling order. That night, after everyone had left and Sophia was asleep in her new nursery, Elena and Adrian stood in their bedroom, not separate rooms anymore, but a shared space with a king-size bed and windows overlooking the backyard. "Are you sure about this?" Elena asked. "Sharing a room?" "Only if you are." Adrian pulled her close. "We can take it as slow as you need. I'm not expecting anything just because we're in the same bed." "What if I'm expecting something?" His eyes darkened. "Then I'm a very lucky man." They made love slowly, carefully, relearning each other's bodies after years apart. It wasn't the passionate urgency of their early relationship, but something deeper, more meaningful. A conscious choice to be vulnerable, to trust, to rebuild intimacy that had been shattered. Afterward, lying in Adrian's arms, Elena felt tears slide down her cheeks. "What's wrong?" Adrian asked, immediately concerned. "Nothing. Everything. I'm happy, and it terrifies me." She turned to face him. "What if this doesn't last? What if we mess it up again?" "Then we fix it. Together." He kissed her forehead. "I'm not saying it'll be perfect, Elena. We'll fight and disagree and probably drive each other crazy sometimes. But I'm committed to making this work, to being the partner you deserve and the father Sophia needs. Even when it's hard, especially when it's hard." The months that followed proved the truth of his words. There were hard days, moments when Adrian's instinct to control flared up, when Elena's fear of being trapped resurfaced. But they talked through it, worked through it, refused to let old patterns destroy what they were building. The foundation launched to surprising success, helping dozens of families transition away from criminal enterprises. Adrian threw himself into the work with the same intensity he'd once brought to expanding territory, but this time building instead of destroying. Elena started taking online classes, finally pursuing the degree she'd abandoned when she married Adrian. It was slow going with the baby, but she chipped away at it, determined to become the educated, independent woman she'd always wanted to be. Sophia thrived in their new life. She took her first steps in the backyard on a sunny spring morning, wobbling between her parents with determination that made them both laugh and cry. Her first word was Dada, which made Adrian insufferably smug, until her second word was Mama, and balance was restored. On their first anniversary in the new house, Adrian proposed. Not with the massive diamond he'd given her the first time, but with a simple band engraved with coordinates, the latitude and longitude of this house, this new beginning. "I know we're still technically married," he said, down on one knee in the kitchen where they'd marked Sophia's height. "But I want to do this right, ask you properly, as equals, with full understanding of what we're promising each other." "Which is what?" Elena asked, her heart full to bursting. "To choose each other, every day, even when it's hard. To build a life based on trust and honesty instead of control and fear. To raise our daughter, and maybe her siblings someday, in a home full of love instead of violence." He took her hand. "Elena Ward, will you marry me? Again? For real this time?" "Yes," Elena said through tears. "Yes, absolutely yes." They remarried in the backyard on a perfect June day, with Sophia as their flower girl and only close family in attendance. Catherine cried, which she claimed was allergies, but everyone knew better. Mrs. Chen made enough food to feed an army and told everyone who would listen that she'd known from the beginning they were meant to be together. When the minister asked if they had vows to exchange, Elena and Adrian spoke from the heart. "I promise to trust you," Elena said, "even when my past tells me not to. I promise to give you the chance to be better, to grow, to become the man you're trying to be. I promise to build this life with you, as partners, raising our daughter in love and safety." Adrian's voice was thick with emotion. "I promise to earn your trust every single day, to ask instead of assume, to support instead of control. I promise to be honest about my struggles, to to keep doing the work in therapy, to never stop trying to be worthy of you and Sophia. And I promise to love you both with everything I am for as long as I live." When they kissed, Sophia clapped her hands and yelled, "Yay!" making everyone laugh through their tears. That night, after the guests had left and Sophia was asleep, Elena and Adrian sat on their porch swing, watching fireflies dance across the darkened yard. "Do you ever miss it?" Elena asked. "The power, the influence, the adrenaline of your old life?" Adrian considered the question honestly. "Sometimes, there's a part of me that probably always will. But then I look at what I have now, you, Sophia, this life we've built, and I know I made the right choice. This is real. Everything before was just survival. I'm proud of you, for changing, for doing the hard work. I'm proud of you too, for giving me the chance, for being brave enough to trust me again." He pulled her closer. "I know I don't say it enough, but you saved me, Elena. When you ran, when you came back, when you agreed to try, every time you saved me from becoming my father. You saved yourself. I just gave you a reason to try." They sat in comfortable silence, rocking slowly, while night settled over their home. Inside, their daughter slept peacefully, safe and loved. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, teething, tantrums, the endless juggling of work and family, but they would face it together. Elena thought about the woman she'd been 2 years ago, fleeing in the night with nothing but fear and determination. She'd been so certain that freedom meant being alone, that safety required distance from Adrian Voss. She'd been wrong. Freedom wasn't running away. It was choosing to stay, with open eyes and firm boundaries, building something new from the ashes of what had burned. It was the terrifying, exhilarating act of trusting someone who'd hurt you, giving them the chance to do better. And love, real love, wasn't about possession or control. It was about two broken people choosing each other, over and over, doing the hard work of healing together. "What are you thinking about?" Adrian asked. "How far we've come, how much has changed." "Any regrets?" Elena looked out at the yard where Sophia would play tomorrow, at the home they'd built together, at the man beside her who'd fought so hard to become someone worthy of a second chance. "Not a single one," she said, and meant it with her whole heart. In the distance, the city glittered like a reminder of who they'd been. But here, in this house, in this moment, they were simply Elena and Adrian, two people who'd found their way back to each other, who'd chosen love over fear, who'd built a family from broken pieces and refused to let their past define their future. And that, Elena thought, as Adrian kissed her under the stars while their daughter slept peacefully inside, was the only happy ending that mattered.